jump every time he bangs? Well, listen, it's...
Good evening. Before we begin our meeting, I hope you will join me for a moment of silence to remember those who have lost their lives in the recent storm, along with those who have lost loved ones, homes, businesses, and those who risked their lives to help and save those who found themselves stranded. Thank you. I call our October 1st regular board meeting of education to order. I'm glad you are here. Before we begin, I would like to share a few reminders. Please keep the aisles clear during our meeting to allow the members of the school system and the Sheriff's Department to move about, except also when honoring our flag, our opening prayer, and when participating in call to audience, please remain seated during our meeting. We hope to have a productive meeting, and your help is greatly appreciated. Thank you very much. Ms. Bowie, would you please call the roll?
Good evening. Pete Wildebohr.
Present.
Melissa Mason.
Here.
Josie Barnhart.
Here.
Pat Bradford.
I am here.
Stephanie Craybill.
Here.
Hugh McManus. Here. And Stephanie Walker.
Here.
Thank you, board members, for being here, and everyone else for being here this afternoon. We will have our approval of the agenda next. Do I hear such a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
First and second. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like
Yes.
to make a motion to amend the agenda to include a 5-minute discussion under new business to allow the consideration of the nomination of champion of education, specifically to nominate Wilmington Chamber of Commerce for the CLDA program.
Second.
Okay, we have a first and second. Any discussion of that? All in favor? Hearing none. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign.
Aye.
That carries 7-0. We will now have a motion to approve the amended motion. Thank you. Okay. Second. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
That carries. All against, please like sign. That carries 7-0. So 7-0. The agenda is approved. We will now move on to invocation. Our invocation today will be done remotely. My paper here. In honor of Hispanic Heritage Month, Reverend Stephen DeSimeso, Associate Pastor of the Basilica of St. Mary Parish, will provide an English and Spanish invocation remotely. Right after that, we will have our national anthem, and we will have the presentation of colors. New Hanover High School AJROTC will provide the presentation of colors under the direction of Captain Lance Gaither and First Sergeant David Redwine, Principal Philip Sutton. And we also welcome the Ashley High School Eagle Strings Quartet under the direction of Riley Paulson, orchestra teacher, who will perform our national anthem. We will first start with our invocation.
Well, students, parents, teachers, members of the New Hanover County School Board, very good evening to all of you. My name is Father Stephen. I'm from the Basilica of St. Mary here in Wilmington. And I know that you're beginning Hispanic Heritage Month, and that is a happy celebration for our culture, because we know that while we are one human family, our members are diverse, and those members of our family who are Hispanic bring a unique contribution with their sense of faith, their sense of family values, and the warmth and good food that they bring to our culture here in America. I want to say a brief prayer for your meeting, and I ask Almighty God to bless and give good vision and direction to you as you seek to serve the members of this community, the students, their families, that we may all keep in mind those things that are most important to advance the unity, diversity, and solidarity of our work here in this local area. Estudiantes, padres, maestros, miembros del New Hanover County School Board, muy buenas noches a ustedes. Yo soy Padre Steven de la Basílica de Santa María aquí en Wilmington y sirvo a muchos de los miembros católicos de nuestra comunidad hispana aquí. Les deseo a ustedes un feliz comienzo de este mes de herencia hispana. Es un mes en que reconocemos que nos somos miembros de una grande familia y los miembros de esta familia son diversos. En este mes, los hispanos se acuerdan de sus raíces y nosotros reconocemos la importancia de los valores que traen a nuestra cultura, la importancia de la fe, la importancia de la familia, el calor que traen la buena comida a veces. Somos muy, muy enriquecidos por los dones que traen en nuestra cultura aquí en los Estados Unidos.
Amen.
Amen.
Carry colors. Forward, arch, and leg, Hamlet, arch, and arch, leg, colors, hope, leg, pace, colors.
We've asked Board Member Pat Bradford to lead us in the pledge. Ms. Bradford?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hi, I'm Ashton Gainey.
My name is Piper Mendenhall.
I'm Brennan McRedman.
Hi, I'm Hunter Hull.
Let's give them one more round of applause, please. And if we could have the group from New Hanover High School come on back, let them introduce themselves too, please.
My name is Jaden Cheshire.
My name is Kyla Jones.
Isaiah Allen.
My name is Jaeger Boyd.
All right, next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. Do I hear a motion?
Chairman, I move to approve.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Yes, sir, second.
Second? You were too quick, I'm sorry. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes as presented, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
I guess that was 7-0. Next, we'll have recognitions. Board members, again, I'd ask you all to join us. You
Want me to stay here?
Good evening. When tropical storms wreaked unexpected havoc on our community last month, a number of divisions and community partners stepped up to serve our schools and our school community in extraordinary ways. So first, we were going to recognize two corporals from the new Hanover County Sheriff's Department who courageously and kindly transported students from Carolina Beach Elementary School to their homes in high water vehicles in, again, a state of emergency in Carolina Beach in the community. I don't believe that they're here this evening because I think they are heeding the call to. Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you. Come on up. Corporal, yep. Corporal Chad Holler and Corporal Glenn Peterson not only did what they are called to do in the moment, but they did it in a way that made what could have been a traumatic experience for those children into something that they will remember in a positive way. I've seen the photos of those kids in that high water vehicle. They're all smiling. They got to brag about that the next day because of the way that you made them feel in what could have been a traumatic time. So thank you not only for doing your duty, but for doing it in a way that was meaningful for our children. So thank you. Thank you. And I know they would have been embarrassed if I did a recognition for them as well, but Dr. Robin Hamilton and Julie Varnum were also on that vehicle in the rain. Reassuring those kids and making sure that they got home safely. So thank you to our admin team. I'm sorry? And Mrs. Angel, the principal at Carolina Beach Elementary School. So thank you to our administrators as well.
I think we need to see pictures of those. Sorry.
I call that Craybell from the heavens.
Yes, I need to see pictures of our staff having fun in the rain.
Okay. Our transportation team. Deb, come on up. It's here to, yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So they not only were delivering children safely home that entire treacherous day, but the next day and the day after that, they were out practicing their routes without any kids in the bus to make sure that every mile of that route was safe so that kids could get to school the next day as well. So our transportation team, our unsung heroes, we appreciate you so much. And Deb is here to represent them. And who else would you like to introduce? Hi. Thank you all. Thank you so much. Our operations team, if Chris is here, come on up. If you had to clean up your own yard, you can imagine the scale of cleaning up the entire school district after the storms that we had. And that's what our operations team was doing, making sure that everyone had safe access to their school grounds, that our buildings were cared for and kept up, and that we could return to some sense of normalcy at school. And operations was working more than overtime. So thank you so much. Thank you. Child nutrition, if Amy is here. I don't know. You want to come up, Eddie? Sorry. Yeah. So many of our district families rely on our child nutrition team to provide the most important meal or meals of the day for their families. And even in times of crisis, they do that. So thank you to Child Nutrition for all you did. And yeah. I'm very excited. All right. The Bridge Church of Wilmington. I believe we have a representative here. Yeah, come on up. They are located directly behind Snipes Academy of Arts and Design, and they have adopted that school. Yeah. Snipes has seen some extraordinary academic success recently, and we're incredibly proud of them. And they also are receiving this kind of support from their community. The Bridge Church recently raised and donated $10,000 to Snipes. Community partnerships have an incredible impact on our schools. Obviously, we can measure this one, but that sort of support and knowing that somebody else has your back is immeasurable. So thank you so much, the Bridge Church. Yeah. Wonderful, thank you. All right, Katie Martin, are you here tonight? Yay. Katie has been recognized statewide for her contributions to the North Carolina mathematics education community. She is a co-designer of the Visions project of the North Carolina Collaboration for Mathematics Learning. Congratulations. She's been, yeah. That's not me. Math is a little bit scary to some of us, but the Visions Project is a research practice partnership of researchers from 4 universities in the UNC system and STEM leaders from the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction and math educators from across the state. And it began in 2022, and again, Katie was one of the co-designers of this. And it provides equitable access to high-quality math instruction for students across North Carolina. So congratulations, and thank you for all you do. Yeah. And our last one, we have a student from Ashley High School. Are you here this evening? Yep, come on up. All right, this is Mairead. Thank you for the help on your pronunciation. That's a beautiful name. She is one of just 100 people nationwide who was selected for a prestigious NASA internship this last summer. Yep. That's wonderful. She completed it this past summer, is showing us the future of STEM education and accomplishments, and we appreciate all that you put into doing that, and thank you for representing New Hanover County Schools at the national level. We're very proud of you. Thank you.
It'll be a little bit longer. So I have 2 administrative introductions this evening, and the first one is Miss Andrea Britt. You want to come forward? Miss Britt has spent most of her teaching career at Williams. She was a teacher also at International School of Gregory early on in her career, and we're thrilled that she and honored that she will now be our assistant principal at Castle Hayne Elementary School. And next we have Miss Elizabeth Lavoie, if she could come on up here as well. She is the new supervisor of talent management in HR, so we're thrilled to have her be part of our team. She also has experience teaching in the classroom, and most recently, she was the assistant principal at Porter's Neck Elementary, so we're thrilled to have her as part of the HR team. I'm pleased to present an update on the Advanced Teaching Roles Program, a significant initiative for New Hanover County Schools. Our district applied for this grant last fall, and then we were thrilled to receive notification just this past spring that we were awarded the funding to support this program. Tonight, we have a special presentation for you that will cover 2 different areas of this grant. One will do a program overview. Ms. Jennifer Boer, our ATR program coordinator, will provide key information about the program and an update on the progress of its implementation. as well as an opportunity to recognize our multi-classroom teachers. We're honored to have with us tonight 9 of our multi-classroom teachers. These educators represent the best of the best in our district and are forming the first cohort of this innovative program. We're immensely proud of the work that's been accomplished under Ms. Boer's leadership. Her dedication and vision have been instrumental in bringing this program to life and ensuring its successful launch. The selection of our first cohort of multi-classroom teachers marks a significant milestone for our district. These 9 outstanding educators have demonstrated exceptional skills, dedication, and leadership potential. Their participation in this program will not only enhance their own professional growth, but also elevate the quality of education across all of our schools. As we proceed with this presentation, we invite you to learn more about how the HR program is shaping the future of education in New Hanover County, empowering our teachers, and ultimately benefiting our students. Without further ado, I'd like to invite Ms. Boer up to the podium to begin her presentation.
Good evening. I'm here to share about the implementation of the Advanced Teaching Roles program in our district. This program highlights New Hanover County Schools' ongoing commitment to educational excellence. The NC General Assembly created the Advanced Teaching Roles program to elevate highly effective teacher leadership positions where they receive substantial, ongoing increased pay for taking on additional responsibilities and extending their reach in their school buildings. This program allows teacher leaders to support colleagues by providing professional support through ongoing coaching and modeling of best teaching practices. It supports principals in allowing them to distribute leadership opportunities across their school buildings, while the intentional design of the program improves student outcomes. New Hanover County Schools was awarded the Advanced Teaching Roles Grant this spring and began our implementation planning in March of 2024. The Advanced Teaching Role programs moves our schools from a typical school organization model where the principal is the sole leader and responder to all of the teachers within the building to a model where they're able to distribute leadership across their building with those teacher leaders so that they can work collaboratively with the school principal and lead those small groups of teachers. In our district, what we're doing is we're utilizing the program to have multi-classroom teachers in our buildings. They work directly with 3 co-teachers daily. This allows the multi-classroom teachers to support a larger number of students than the typical classroom teacher would, and to build teaching practices and capacities of the co-teachers that they are supporting. For the 24-25 school year, we have 5 schools participating for a total of 9 multi-classroom teachers who are supporting a total of 27 co-teachers and a total of 548 students who are being impacted by this group of teachers. This enhances classroom instruction and promotes highly effective classroom teaching strategies. Today, I'm proud to highlight the 9 exceptional educators who have stepped into our first cohort of multi-classroom teachers. These MCTs were selected based on rigorous criteria that was suggested by the state, and then we added on to that criteria. Some of the criteria was that they were rated accomplished or higher on the teacher evaluation rubric. They had national board certification or advanced degrees. They have a proven track record of being highly effective as indicated by EVAS data. They demonstrated leadership and collaboration expertise, and they had a minimum of 3 years teaching experience. Our multi-classroom teachers are not just teachers, they're leaders and catalysts for change. Their responsibilities include leading teams of 3 teachers through co-teaching a minimum of 50% of the instructional school day. They co-plan and co-assess with those co-teachers. They analyze team data to inform the instructional practices and teach their co-teachers how to do that work. They use that data to spearhead effective data-driven professional learning communities. They provide peer-to-peer, non-evaluative feedback. And they collaborate with school instructional coaches and district lead teachers to support the implementation of our high-quality curricular materials. By focusing on the core content of reading and math, these MCTs are set to make a significant impact on student achievement across our district, which will in turn support our strategic plan goals. As we begin our first year of implementation, we are filled with optimism. Our MCTs, our co-teachers, Principals and central office staff have had the opportunity this summer to engage in professional development, to learn about the ATR program, co-teaching, and how we can use technology to support our work. We will continue to engage in collaborative professional development over the course of the next few years to continue to grow this program. Each MCT's day looks different, but they are spending a majority of their day in the classroom co-teaching with their co-teachers. Our grant says a minimum of 50%, but many of them are going above and beyond that 50%, which is exciting. This gives them the opportunity to model high-yield instructional strategies in the moment with their co-teacher while giving immediate and frequent feedback to their co-teacher and students on what they need. Because the MCT has daily access to the 3 classrooms, they reach more students with their highly effective teaching strategies. And when they're not co-teaching, they're co-planning or co-assessing to support those teachers. I want to express my deepest gratitude to everyone involved in bringing this program to life, from our principals who had a vision and supported me as we were working on figuring out the plan, to our dedicated teachers who have embraced these new roles, both our MCTs and the co-teachers that they're working with. Together, we're shaping the future of education in our community. Thank you for your continued support, Board, and the commitment to educational excellence. The future is bright for New Hanover County Schools, and I'm excited to see the positive impact this program will have on our students, teachers, and community. It's my honor and privilege to get to work with and lead our multi-classroom teachers and co-teachers multi-classroom teachers who you are about to meet. You want me to? Leah Cresswell, Forest Hills Elementary. Lauren Flythe, Murrayville Elementary. Alyssa Langley, Wrightsboro Elementary. Erica Roach, Winter Park Elementary. Joy Austin, Mary C. Williams Elementary. Peter Hunt, Murrayville Elementary. Mandy Cossack, Winter Park Elementary. Amy Pollard, Wrightsboro Elementary. And Brooke Kenworthy was not able to be here, but she is from Mary C. Williams Elementary.
Comments about? Everything?
Everything? I think it's, we are.
Oh, I know you're going.
No. District is great. I mean, I think it's all great. I mean, I've been happy to hear about all the teachers and the student. I mean, everything. I don't know what you want me to comment on specifically, but I just think it's all great.
Oh, just maybe about the advanced teaching roles.
Oh, advanced teaching role. I don't pretend to know everything about it, but I think anything that brings more teachers into our classroom to help our students is fabulous. So I'm happy with that.
Thanks. Welcome, Mr. McManus.
Thank you. Celebrating success is paramount to everything about us, individually, group-wise, school-wise, et cetera. So I'd like to compliment all those who try to put together everything, like the donation to the school, the $10,000. Wow, that's phenomenal. And if we don't celebrate it here, other people don't realize that that's possible, and they do it. So, wonderful.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Bradford?
I would like to comment because, we were in a meeting and it was an agenda briefing meeting, and this idea was casually thrown out, and we massaged it. We talked about what it would cost. We got in the car, we went to Raleigh, and now we see this beginning. And it's really just so heartwarming to be a part of the process and to see this opportunity for a district and to have been a little tiny part of it.
Ms. Mason?
Pretty much echoing what everyone else is saying. It's great to see a new program developing, and my children have gotten to have at least one of those teachers. So whoever else has her, they are fortunate for sure.
Awesome. Ms. Crable, I don't want to bypass you. Do you want to say anything?
Yeah, I do. Thank you. This is a great program that we brought forward, so an excellent presentation, Ms. Brewer. But I like to see the fact that teachers get to collaborate in their efforts to be better teachers and to bring better instruction to our students. So congratulations to all of you teachers, and I am looking forward to hearing all about your success stories. So thank you for those who put the grant together, and thank you to New Hanover County HR department that put it into play. This is awesome.
And I will echo that sentiment. I think it is a great program. I think it's the best of the best leading, and I think it's wonderful. So you just saw a wonderful group of teachers that will be leading other teachers and improving other teachers. So that was wonderful. We hope to continue this program for many, many years to come. And Barnhart, why don't you take it home?
I'll take it home. Thank you, sir. I'm very excited to see this group of individuals come up forward, and I am excited to help continue to advocate for this grant. I think it's a minimum of 5 years that we're going to get this funding that the state allowed us, and so I'm excited to continue to open that avenue and share the successes that we're seeing. So not only can we secure the funding, but for more of our schools to continue to do this so more of our students are supported. Thank you for our staff.
Thank you. And that will lead us into, again, the best of the best. We have our teacher voice. Let me see if I click on that. Mallory Weeks will be joining us. So Mallory, would you come on up? As we just talked about the best of the best, here's one of the best of the best, one of our teachers of the year. So thank you for being here tonight.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm Mallory Weeks. I work at Winter Park Elementary School, and I teach 4th grade. And so I want to talk a little bit about our sustainability efforts that we have been trying to implement for several years at Winter Park Elementary School. So when we first started this, we partnered with a program called Garbage to Gardens. They're currently partnering with, I think, 11 total schools in New Hanover County, but we were kind of one of the first. So in our cafeteria, how we started this was we set up waste stations to help sort things like our unconsumed liquid, recycling, our organic materials, and then, of course, our trash. And so the system itself was aiming to reduce the amount of waste that ends up in the landfill. So most items that currently go to the landfill could be sorted into other categories. And one of the big advantages of diverting this waste is that it does help reduce costs over the long period. So the more trash we're sending to the landfill, the higher cost. And so by sorting this properly, we can lower the volume and the weight of the trash, which ultimately makes the disposal cheaper and more efficient. So there are some pictures of our waste stations and some of our students participating in the program. I will say that one of the ways that we're able to implement this the way that we do is in part to our head custodian, Miss Carolina, who does a lot of work in the cafeteria getting this set up. So the reason I was inspired to do this is because I found out some data. So each student in New Hanover County schools is estimated to produce about a half a pound to a pound of trash each day. So if we think about the number of students in New Hanover County schools, that's about 12,500 pounds of trash per day just for the school system. And so what I found out was that our landfill in New Hanover County at the time of this data, which was in 2023, had about 28-year lifespan remaining. The issue with that is that because we do get a lot of hurricanes, tropical storms, the more debris we get, the quicker that fills up. So if we have another major storm come through, that can take anywhere from 15 to 30 years off of the lifespan of the landfill, just filling it up with debris. And so again, it comes back to the cost. What's going to happen is once our landfill is full, we're going to have to pay as residents to have that shipped somewhere else. So, you know, the ultimate goal is to try to preserve the life of the landfill as long as possible. And I know that a lot of organic material, so the things that we're sending to be composted, are what's actually being put in the landfill, and so it really needs to be diverted elsewhere so that we can extend the life. So at Winter Park Elementary, over a couple of years, we've really kind of seen this come full circle. When I first started, and I didn't exactly know where it was going to lead us. But we send our compost to Wilmington Compost Company. They're a commercial company. And so they come and collect it once a week. And the circle wasn't exactly a circle, but our landfill also has a composting facility. But they don't do pickup, so our contract is through Wilmington Compost. But if you're a resident of New Hanover County, you can get their compost for free to put in your garden. And so we went and got a truckload of compost and brought it back to the school. And we were able to use that to enrich our school garden beds. So over the past year, the kids have really been focusing on planting more seasonal vegetables and fruits. Our ESL teacher has really gotten a lot of our ML students involved in going out in the garden and planting those. And it's become more manageable for us to plant those seasonal gardens. So it's not only cut down on our waste, but of course it has involved our students, and we're really seeing its benefits right there on Winter Park's campus. So we had a couple other projects come from this, and it's led to a lot of community partnerships. So we got a grant in October of last year from the Cape Fear Garden Club, and we were able to purchase native pollinators, a lot of low maintenance things, which is what we needed. We were having trouble kind of keeping up with what was already there on our campus. And so the project is aimed to enhance our landscape, but also we wanted to support our local ecosystems and promote sustainability with our native pollinators. And it worked out that in November of last year, we were selected for a Work on Wilmington project. And so we used the funds from Cape Fear Garden Club to purchase the variety of plants and landscaping materials. Work on Wilmington came together with many members of the community. Our school families got involved, and we had a work day where we all came together and planted and cleaned up the campus. This also coincided with us being selected for a GE school garden project, And so actually the same week that Work on Wilmington came, GE came and built 4 new garden beds for us. And that's what we're using for our pollinator gardens as well as our seasonal fruit and vegetable gardens. And so you'll see I have all of our community partners that we've been working with. The big thing when I started this, I didn't realize how wide this was going to spread. We've had so many people partner with us, help us out with things, reach out to me to ask what they could do. I've had people approach me for this. And so it has really built a strong sense of community. And so I have some pictures here of our Work on Wilmington Day, some before and afters, and then just the group of people that came out. And then also our garden bed project. The first 2 pictures are the day after it was done, and then the third picture is over the summer once the plants had kind of filled out and matured a bit more. So as far as our current and future projects, right now we're going to complete planting in the empty garden beds. We're planning to focus on sensory plants and natural items to try to engage and have an interactive space for our students, specifically our students in our NHCS program at Winter Park. We're expanding our waste diversion efforts. We tried this last week at our first family night. That's the photo there. So we, instead of just having our trash can out in the field, brought out the compost buckets and recycling to try to spread this to our families as well and let them see what the kids were doing in the cafeteria. We're also going to go forward and try to conduct some parent and student surveys just to gather data on their knowledge and their personal involvement in trash diversion so that we can better understand what do we need to do going forward. And then we're working to increase our participation every week. My principal, Mr. Hall, sends out a sustainability challenge, and the families can send in photos or videos of their students doing that at home. And so we're trying to get a little bit more participation in it this year. So the way this all started was I was selected as an emerging leader in the 2022-2023 cohort. So if you're not familiar with emerging leaders, their vision and purpose, the purpose of the Emerging Leaders Program is to identify New Hanover County school teacher leaders, empower them with the mindset to recognize their value, leverage their talents, and navigate diverse pathways to positively impact district culture. And so there's currently a second cohort in emerging leaders right now, but I will say this is so true. I would not have started this without being selected to emerging leaders. I think that we have so many teachers with untapped potential, and this was a way for me personally to see that just the little things I was already passionate about were enough for me to step into a leadership role and actually cause some change in our district and hopefully in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Weeks. Board members, do we have any comments or questions? Ms. Mason?
So Winter Park has a special place in my heart. My boys went there.
Yep.
But not only as a mom, being part of the newly developed sustainability committee and being on the soil and water, seeing what you're doing, I hope that we can spread that. That's exactly what I envisioned for our district when I first started thinking about the garden process, and that you guys have brought that process all the way through is just phenomenal, and have those community partnerships. So I hope we can spread it.
Yeah, thank you.
Ms. Walker?
So I know a couple years ago we went to Garbage to Gardens. I think me and Stephanie Crable did, and they talked about Winter Park. And you guys are a model for what all the schools should be doing. And I was talking to some folks at the Sierra Club too, and they asked me a question. They said, "Well, how can we change what we do in New Hampshire County schools waste-wise?" And you just gave a really good statistic: 12,500 per day in our county, which would save tons of landfill space. and good thing and timing. I got to tell them that we did form a sustainability committee with the board, and I think that this is probably one of the audit things that we could look at because it is a very important, our landfill space and how much and I think the schools could do a lot to help with that. We have a decent recycling program, but this right here, I just think would be huge for the county. For the entire county, it would benefit, not just the schools, and there's the curriculum piece and all that stuff too. I will say, you're talking about the compost, you are very accurate. We can go as county residents and go to the landfill, I think. That's where the composter machine is. I think it's called Huckleberry. I don't know, that's what they named it.
That's it.
But a lot of people don't know that. And so you right now, by telling everybody, hopefully that'll spur people to go and get their own compost because it's really good for your garden. So.
Great. Ms. Barnhart, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your work and your effort in this. The gardeners are speaking tonight, but this is something that I'm passionate about. And when Ms. Mason and myself were appointed to the Soil and Water Committee, we talked about how can we replicate what we're already doing well, and you guys are that shining example. And so thank you for that. And we're going to tap into that knowledge base so we can spread it because we have an eagerness with so many of our schools that they want to do this, and Soil and Water has grant funding to help do this, and we have community partners who want to support, and so thank you for what you're doing, and we'll be in touch.
Yeah, thank you.
Ms. Graybill?
Yes, sir. I just wanted to commend Mallory. I was introduced to her way back a long time ago when they were first starting it, and was at another meeting that Ms. Walker had suggested, but I don't know what the exact number is with the garbage garden, but I think we're up to like 13 schools now that are in various stages. Is that right, Mallory?
Yes, I know the last newsletter I saw was 11, but I know they're constantly adding more schools to the program.
Awesome.
Yes, so that's, so I wanted to bring that, the Winter Park was the definite leader, in this program. I think when they started, it was just Winter Park and DC Virgo, who were doing it and getting all the grant money. So this is a wonderful program and another way that we can engage our community because, Mallory, you may want to mention about how volunteer intensive it is in cafeterias as you're getting started. But I volunteered in her cafeteria a couple times, and the kids really seem to like it and really embrace it. So maybe you can make a comment about the volunteers that we can, ask our community to help with.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we first started this, we did have somebody who was trying to come in at least once a week. The leader of Garbage Gardens at that time really came in and worked with me to get everything set up and try different things that worked with our student population. So over the past couple of years, we personally at Winter Park have been able to get this a little bit more into our fabric, I guess you would say, where the students do know where the things go. I will say it still does cause quite a mess, so it's nice to have somebody there, especially with the little kids. But I know also, like at the schools that are just getting this going, having volunteers there to just watch the stations and remind kids where things go is very helpful. So the Garbage Gardens coordinator, she does set up the volunteer schedule, and she is somebody that people could reach out to if they were interested in going to one of the cafeterias to volunteer.
Ms. Bradford?
Thank you, Ms. Weeks, for taking this on and for your hard work. And this is foundational. This is, train up a child in the way they'll go. These are life skills that'll stay with them always. And we do hope to replicate it across the district. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We just want to thank you very much for being a teacher leader, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
We will turn it over to our interim superintendent for his report.
Good evening. You're going to hear some more updates from me about New Hanover County later this evening. So I wanted to first take this opportunity to extend our heartfelt solidarity to the communities and schools in Western Carolina who have been devastated by Hurricane Helene. Of course, we know something about natural disasters here, and we know what it means to have the support of other people in your time of need. As an educational community, we recognize the emotional, physical, and academic toll this takes on students, families, and staff of our neighbors in the western part of the state. Many families are facing loss of not just property, but also the stability that comes with a safe and secure environment. We know from experience that they'll need the support not only now, but for the long haul. And we want to let them know that New Hanover County Schools will be there for them. Our district leadership is working actively to see what that will look like and how we can step up and step in to support the schools and communities that need it. Having been a principal in the western part of the state, I understand what they're going through. I've been out and reaching out to some superintendents there. Once they get assessing the damage, we're going to be pushing out some ideas and ways that you guys can help as well. Going to go off script for a minute, which should terrify all the people on that side of the room. The book of James says that faith, when it's not accompanied by action, is dead. Peter Parker said it a little easier when he said, with great power comes great responsibility. This is what I want our children to learn, that when someone falls down, you help them back up. So we're going to be providing opportunities for that in the coming weeks. So thank you. That concludes my report.
Next is my report. It'll be brief this evening. The board will work closely with our superintendent during the recent storms or prior throughout the weeks of the storm. The month of October is Principal Appreciation Month. I would like to take a moment to thank all our principals, assistant principals, for their outstanding work, their hard work, who thick and thin, they do a great job. So we want to thank them, recognize them. The board met to discuss norms and to support our principals as they strive to make our schools safer. The turnaround task force met under the direction of Ms. Walker, and the rest of the task force worked to better support our low-performing school meetings at Walker. I was able to visit Carolina Beach Elementary when they opened and spend some time with Angel. Thought I'd be the first one there, but as I shared last week, Superintendent and Ms. both need me there, but she was very pleased and happy to have everyone there. So, also took some time to visit Roland Rice, Hoggard, Holly Tree, and Rome Grove. And I want to take just a moment to thank their faculty and staff for taking some time out of their busy schedule to meet with. I know it is somewhat of an imposition, but I know that they do enjoy having us go out as a board. I do want to thank all the board members trying their best to get out of school and see how things are going. And lastly, I can see a couple of candidates here. We hope to meet with the candidates for the Board of Education very soon. Work with those who will be joining the board at any time. At this time, we will carry on with our information section. New Hanover County employee listening tour.
All right, good evening, everyone. Good evening, board again. Back in a past life, when I had my EMT license, I learned about deep wound care. And a lot of times when someone gets wounded deeply, they will want to heal that wound from the inside out, meaning it slowly has to heal over time, because if you're not careful, the wound heals on the outside and there's still an abscess underneath. So for the last 3 months, that's what we've been doing, is sort of the first step was to listen, and this next step in the healing process is to share with you what we've heard on this listening tour. So if you can go to the next slide. Oh, I'm doing it. We can go to the next slide, please. So the listening tour started the week after, second week in July. And I committed to trying to meet with every single employee that works in the district. As of last week, we had another one since this slide's been created. We're up to about 2,300 staff members that I was able to meet with myself and talk to them. So it started at the leadership retreat on the 10th, and my most recent one actually was Ogden, which was last week. So what I did is I wanted to ask every single employee that works in this district the same 3 questions. Quite frankly, this is coming off the survey we did late in May and early June, which said there were significant concerns about the culture in our district. And so what I did is I asked everyone the same 3 questions, because what I wanted to do was see what themes of data come up when everyone is asked the same thing. So the first question, and I took all 150 pages of the survey, and what it said to me over and over and over again, that there was a loss of trust between all different sections of the district and our staff. So my first question was, if you believe that the problem is trust, what do I start doing immediately to try to fix that? So that was the first question. How do we fix it? What needs to change now? The second question, quite frankly, is what's not broke? What's working well enough that it's operating on its own successfully and doesn't need immediate attention? And then the third thing is I sat down and came up with what I considered 5 big rocks or stumbling blocks in the way of this district being awesome. And so I asked everybody I met, what are your rocks? To see how closely mine aligned with what people in the schools were saying. So, the first question, what needed to change immediately? Now, what you'll be seeing here is about 5 or 6 themes that I heard over and over and over again, responses from literally hundreds of voices that are resonating through this. So the first theme that came up to me was about trust, that teachers and staff felt like they were made to feel like they don't know how to teach, that we weren't asking for input before we were making decisions, and that when we micromanage people to a degree, they lose trust. It sends the message that we don't trust their ability to do the job. So that trust was a major theme that came out. The second was transparency and communication, finding ways to improve our communication response times across our divisions, including everyone together in principal meetings so it wasn't people working in silos together. And when we do explain, we have to explain why we need something done. We need to understand the why. Staff said we don't understand why you want us to do these things. So what we're asking is a lot of stuff to get done, but not really explaining why it had to get done. Okay? There was a lot of questions about visibility, that visits to schools weren't genuine enough, that we weren't taking the time to engage with staff when we were in the building, and we were losing the reality of what happens in the day-to-day in the classrooms. And quite frankly, we needed to observe more and give less feedback. So do more listening instead of talking. There were concerns about the board and politics, that the board decisions should be made focused on educating students, not about political motivations, that there was a lack of trust for the staff's expertise by the board, and the people were asking what's going to be different now. We've seen the survey, we've seen the results, what's going to happen now? And the last one, that we weren't giving our staff enough flexibility to implement curriculum using the art of teaching and using their expertise in the individual student situation. They were losing touch of the personal touch that they could give their students, and that we don't need to jump from one thing to another, that we need to slow down. And then obviously receive input when deciding on programs that we were using. So the key takeaways that I got from that was that staff cannot be afraid to express and raise concerns. That we need to emphasize our culture and our community equally to our academics and our school proficiency. And that we need to remember that as we've reduced in size, the load on all of our teachers has not gone away, that they've increased over time. So that's question 1. Question 2, what's working? I did not put every answer down on here, but there are several that I heard over and over again. That having meetings like I did, providing opportunities for open discussion and free expression of opinions is healthy. The board town hall experience was also noted. Obviously, things like our local salary supplement, our beginning teacher orientation, and support from our counselors and social workers, all those were other items that people felt are positive things that are working in the district. In regards to the biggest stumbling blocks in our way, our budget and our funding is a huge issue for our students. The fact that the ESSER funding ended, but student needs did not, is something we have to wrestle with every day. People losing paraeducators, last-minute cuts, overwhelming staff, and obviously the word that our state allotments are not equal to the needs of our students. So that's one rock. The other rock is that the district focuses a lot of times, the messages about the negative things in the district, not the positive things. That there's a lack of recognition for the good stuff that happens in this county every day. And that every staff member is an ambassador for the work that gets done. I gotta tell you, I love the first hour of this board meeting, which was over and over and over again, highlighting amazing things that are happening in this district. That's what this district is. And we need to focus our attention on that. Our curriculum, we talked about flexibility earlier, and we need to focus more on students and not only on school performance. And then working as the 8 of us as the board and superintendent to build trust and make sure we're not retaliating against people who have differing opinions from us. We need to look for more stronger communication protocols to work with our staff. We need to work on involving other people in decision-making, and then making sure we're building up stronger communication between central office and principals. So, what do we do now? So we've devised 4 different things that my recommendations are to change right now. And I'll be honest with you, there are people that I met with, and people in this room right now, I'll finish in a couple of minutes, and someone's going to roll their eyes and say, well, that sounds good, but I don't believe that it's going to happen. It would be foolish for me to explain to you or try to convince you that the work is done. The work can now get started. We now have the scope of the problem. This is just the beginning, and trust takes time to grow. What I'm asking for is the opportunity to prove to you that these things are our plans, and that just takes time. So the first one is making sure we're involving principals in the decision-making process. Talking with the cabinet, I said we shouldn't make a decision between a principal meeting. There's nothing that we can't wait to get their input on. Also, talk to the staff about your voices need to resonate through your principal. And I've got a couple of examples for that we'll share with you in a little bit. Obviously, you've seen the result of our work to increase our communication with all of our stakeholders and continuing that to make sure that we're being as transparent as possible. I'm going to recommend that we reduce the stress of our employees by minimizing changes in policy, personnel, and curriculum. We need to focus on kids, and when we can do that, things will improve. Now, I'd like to switch slides just for a minute to talk about the staffing update, but I had Ashley Sutton write this down for me so I say it correctly. So if you can work to kick over to that other slide. The current unassigned fund balance in our local current expense is $2.3 million, which approximately is $1.2 million higher than we estimated when we started the budget at the beginning of the year. This surplus is due to the freezing of vacancies and spending initiated last March, combined with faster than projected attrition of positions. Based on this data, I'm recommending that we use this savings and allocate immediately extra positions to our schools. Now, the way these positions came was we sat down with all the principals together and I asked them, list me everything you don't have that you need. And I threw in stuff that I had heard in my listening tour. Well, that was easy. They did a great job with that. And then I asked them to order them by what we have to have first. That's harder, okay? But what we have is 1.1. It was supposed to be $1 million. I kind of snuck it up to 1.1. We're going to be able to put 13 EC teacher assistants back into classrooms, add hang on, the good part's still coming, guys. Hold on. We're looking to recommend a split assistant principal's position for Bradley Creek and Williams. We'd like to put a 6th counselor at Laney because they are our largest high school by quite a little bit. That $60,000 is to help ensure that people who cover during their planning period get a stipend for that. A testing coordinator stipend for our 3 smallest schools who don't have anyone to do that work. 2 extra EC teacher allotments, and then I think it's a critical safety need to have a bus aide at Lake Forest and J.C. Rowe. So board, I'm bringing that to you, and if you guys approve that budget recommendation, that'll start tomorrow. Okay, now you got to go back to the other side. So what we talked about is 3 things. Folks, we all know this now. We all know what fund balance is if you have been paying any bit of attention in the last several months. We cannot continue to use our fund balance. So it is my commitment that we will not take anything out of our fund balance this year. However, I also think it's important to make sure that we're not looking to put a lot in it right now with the staffing needs that we have in our schools. So basically, my mama taught me that found money gets spent. So, but it has to be done methodically, carefully, and with a plan. So hopefully, as we continue through this year, we'll find savings that we can utilize to push back out more positions to schools. I'll bring those to you when we have that opportunity. All right, so the Harvard Business Review sounds like a pretty important book. It says that trust is essential in building and boosting employee engagement, motivation, and trust. Employees are more likely to follow through on goals set by someone they trust, and they are more forthcoming. So the way to do that is to make a connection, be transparent and truthful, encourage rather than command, and take blame and give credit. So that's the plan for me for the remainder of my time here. And I have one message. I think that's our camera, I think. I have one message, final message, for the TA I met at the Spencer Boardroom during CPI training on the 12th of September. You said, "I'm just a TA." She may have said, "I'm only a TA." I am now saying that every employee that works here is not allowed to say just and only, okay? You are the people doing work with our kids. I'm just the interim superintendent. I'm the only one that gets to say that. You folks are doing the work, and all of our voices have to resonate equally. So folks, that's the start of where we need to go to do the work. So, okay. Well, that really wasn't what I was shooting for, folks. Do you have any questions?
Questions, board members?
Well, I make a motion that we approve the budget recommendation. And I do have a comment, Mr. Chair. I really appreciate this, Dr. Barnes, and just your genuineness to discuss the intentionality that we are working towards. There's always work to do. We were very frustrated in this budget process, and we said we are going to, when we find more, to put it back in the classrooms with our students. I just want to reiterate, and especially looking over there with my media colleagues, we utilized our administrators and we got the needs of our students prior to making the decision. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you very much, sir, for doing that.
Walker.
Well, something you did not mention, but I think you have recently in the near past was the fact that we focus too much on academics and not enough on other needs of the children in our district. And that speaks to me a lot because the work we're doing on the task force really does focus on our high priority schools. I don't like to use negative language. I know we say low performing, but there are needs there, and that's just the truth of it. Unless we're gonna all of a sudden redistrict, to spread it out, which okay, I'm gonna say, but there are needs, and on the task force we talk a lot about ACEs and trauma and poverty and things like that. And if I had a magic wand, I would make sure we were fully funded, but I don't. And so I appreciate you finding money to help, because I think especially in the areas. And I'm glad you listened, because I think obviously what we as a board felt at the time of this budget crunch was what staff felt about our AEC TAs and our AEC, because we really do, we have to focus on what the needs are. I'll just say that. You don't have to say that, but I know that you have mentioned that. So I appreciate you doing the listening tour and listening and putting it so everyone else can see it. Okay. We got some bleed through here.
Hold on, Ms. Grable.
Yeah, but also, you coming out here and being very transparent about it.
Well, and I don't want to discount, and please don't let me discount the fact that 16 of our schools made growth, and 16 of our schools exceeded growth, which is a huge accomplishment too. So it's not one or the other. We have to uplift it both.
It could be two things.
Go ahead, Ms. Grable.
I think she's just talking.
Oh, maybe, did you want to say something, Ms. Grable? Okay, if not.
I had to take my headphones off for a minute. What did I miss? Oh, I went wrong. I had to take my headphones off. What did I miss?
We'll catch you up. We'll catch you up.
Everything.
We just talked about the,
Okay, no, I mean, are we voting on something?
not yet. We're about to. We're about to. We're going to vote on the,
Okay.
but we're going to vote, we'll go through exactly what it is, but we got a couple comments. Mr. McManus, do you have a comment?
I've actually shared this with Dr. Barnes, I guess privately, not publicly. What you have done as interim superintendent is you have truly changed what was an accurate perception that you have outlined. You've been accessible, you've been visible, and you listen. And then you do something about it. Even if everyone doesn't agree, but I haven't heard a soul that didn't agree with what you're trying to do, as a matter of the fact. But I want to thank you for that. And quite candidly, I know you probably are not interested in being superintendent, but I think that this community has learned to listen and look forward to what you're doing and what you're attacking and what you're trying to work with. I just hope that the board, 3 of us will be gone and there'll be a new board, but whoever that is, I hope they will consider that you will too, remaining, because I think you've built something, and I hate to see someone follow you who can't do it and have to follow that act.
It's really not my work. We've got great principals.
Well, it
and
starts
good
at the
teachers.
top, boss. I did it for a living.
So,
And I'm telling you, it starts at the top. And you deserve all the accolades that are out there. And I thank you for that.
Ms. Bradford?
Dr. Barnes, I really appreciate you taking this 3.5 months to listen to almost every single staff member. And when you go anywhere, the grocery store, they're talking about what you're doing and they're appreciating what you're doing. You have radically changed the atmosphere in this district. And it's not, in my opinion, something you've done. This is not new to you. I have a friend, as you know, who was with you many, many school districts ago, and this is the same character you demonstrated then, the same listening, the same everything you demonstrated then that makes them a fan of yours. And I appreciate what you've done greatly. Thank you.
Ms. Mason?
Just quick, thank you so much for going out there, for taking some of the arrows for us, because I know you did. And we very much appreciate all that you have done the past 3 months.
And I will finish by saying just a heartfelt thank you. Thank you for all you do each and every day for the students and staff of New Hanover County Schools.
Well, the work starts now, so we can do that together.
Absolutely. We do have a
Okay, so I do have a comment, Steve. All I wanted to say was just, wow, dude, that was a great presentation, very authentic, and hits home. And I know a lot of people, it's resonating with them. So thank you.
And now, Ms. Crable, we have a motion and a second to approve the budget, the update, which is pushing a lot of positions back into classrooms, into schools. $1.128 million. Is there any other discussion on that? We have a motion and a second. Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
We'll give that as an aye, so that carries 7-0. At this point, we will move on to our, and again, thank you to everyone. We'll move on to our call to audience. We've allotted 60 minutes for that. I will turn it over to our Vice Chair, Ms. Mason. Ms. Mason.
Thank you. After amazing news, it's time to hear from the people. So you all know the rules, you all know the drill. Let's start with Katie Gates.
Good evening, Board. I want to address the misperception I've heard many times in this meeting about the separation of church and state. Our nation's historical precedent in education, governance, and culture was rooted in the laws of nature and nature's God, or what is God's moral law. In America, our motto is E pluribus unum. From many, we are one. From many faiths and ethnicities, we become American, operating under moral law, which is the basis for a prosperous and civil society of self-governance. George Washington said, of all the pillars for political prosperity, religion and morality are indispensable supports. John Adams said, "The Constitution is written for a religious and moral society. It is wholly inadequate for the governance of any other." The separation of church and state is only meant to be institutional, so we don't have a theocracy like Iran or a Church of England situation with divine right of kings, which leads to tyranny. There's no mention of the phrase separation of church and state in any founding documents, journals, letters, annals of Congress. Jefferson's letter to the Danbury Baptist Convention in 1802 mentioned a wall of separation between church and state to protect the church from the state. Justice Hugo Black took it out of context in 1947 and has since been perpetuated incorrectly. So each of you board members swore an oath to uphold the Constitution, so help you God. And did you know that the North Carolina Constitution, Article 6, Section 8, states that you are disqualified for office for 3 reasons, the first of which is to deny the being of Almighty God. So if our government leaders are supposed to believe in Almighty God, perhaps we can all grow in our influence and encourage that all members of this community in New Hanover County practice historical precedent, acknowledging God and moral law in all things. Our founders warned that if officials lost sight of a power higher than themselves, this model for government would fail. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen Clark.
The word of the Lord. Don't let anyone capture you with empty philosophies and high-sounding nonsense that come from human thinking and from the spiritual powers of this world rather than from Christ. Evil wants to destroy our children. We have embraced, wrote, scripted, time-consuming, costly curricula for our young children. We are losing children day by day who cannot read, falling further behind. Common sense is no longer common. Our focus has shifted from the individual child to costly, complex curricula with meaningless stuff. Our teachers are overwhelmed with excessive planning time, professional development, and meetings. We will eat the fruit of what we sow. Bored children misbehave. Teachers trained to educate can no longer teach in the best interest of the child. Read the research on screen time and children's brains. 2 Timothy warns, the time is coming when people close their ears to truth. James 4, remember it is a sin to know what you ought to do and then not to do it. I appeal to you from my heart, teaching young children for 41 years, to go back to what was established from the beginning. Prepare the environment. Take each child where he is. Provide the skills, bringing him up higher using the standards. Teach the basics, reading, writing, math, history, science, and the arts. I pray in Jesus' name you choose the narrow path that leads to life for each child, honoring God's holy instructions and his revelation truth. Ignite our schools in your light and truth, King Jesus. Amen.
Thank you. Christina Mercier.
Good evening. As you know, I speak often, as do others, about issues in education we feel are important. I'm going to comment on some topics I've heard from others. Before I retired, I was the short-term suspension teacher at J.C. Rowe. In that time, I had many conversations with my students about their suspensions. One common theme was that they had a difficult time speaking up for themselves after they got in trouble. For some students, it was because they were still overly emotionally charged from the incident. For others, it was because they didn't feel they could speak openly to adults in positions of authority. And for others, they felt like no one cared to listen to them. These students were mostly middle school aged, and they had a difficult time advocating for themselves. Could you imagine how students who are younger must feel when they're in trouble? Think about when you've been through an emotional experience. Is immediately after it a good time to make important decisions? Is it when you're most level-headed? I think you know the answers. So why do we expect our students to do what we as adults cannot? Maybe they need a calm person to be their advocate. Another topic that keeps popping up is school safety. There are so many facets to what this means, and it's not a new issue. I taught at Laney High School in the spring of 1993. At that time, the school was so overcrowded that my class often didn't get fully outside during a fire drill. The return to class bell would ring when we were down the stairs. But again, think about the most crowded places you've been, whether it's a sporting event, an amusement park, or something similar. How's it feel to get bumped into constantly? It's frustrating, and that's assuming you're at a fun event you've chosen to attend. But in our schools, students have to deal with this multiple times per day. Again, as they are humans with emotions, sometimes they are overcome and fights happen. And add in fewer staff members to be proactive, and you have a recipe for unrest. I know the board as it exists now will be changing, but as you move forward, let's remember that students are human beings, and not everything can be a quick fix.
Thank you, Ms. Mercier. Leslie Posey.
Good evening. Several members of this board and audience take great pride in making sure that everyone knows the Bible is their primary background for policy making. In Matthew 5, Jesus said, "Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites." A hypocrite is a person who pretends to have virtues and qualities that they don't have, or whose actions contradict their stated beliefs. Several members of this board are openly showing their hypocrisy. In past years, teachers were afraid to speak negatively about conditions or policies. They were told they could not attend or speak at board meetings without their principal's permission. Obviously, the board and superintendent wanted to make sure the community thought everything was just fine, but the community was learning the truth. This fall, you supposedly changed this unspoken policy. You had a town hall to really listen to teachers. 70 people attended. They were specifically told that this was an open and safe listening space. Since then, according to WHQR and several other sources, some teachers who spoke have been called to the central office, reprimanded for what they said, and letters documenting this placed in their personnel files. Remember the definition of hypocrisy? In Matthew, Jesus also said, "Truly I tell you, whatever you do for one of the least of these, you do for me." Are you doing what is best for the least of these, or is your hypocrisy getting in the way? The teachers and staff who are overwhelmed because you were too proud to ask the county commissioners for more money would say that it is. The LGBTQ kids who you are forcing to identify and endanger themselves with your birth certificate name requirement would say that it is. Just two examples of how you are part of the Pharisees who create the law to serve their own ends, not true followers of Christ who do what is needed for the least of these.
Thank you, Ms. Posey. Natasha, too.
Good evening. My name is Natasha Tu, and I'm running for the New Hanover County Board of Education. Dr. Barnes, thank you for the report tonight. That was really encouraging to hear. I hope we get more work on that. I wanted to thank everyone. Back in the earlier part of the month, there's been so much that has happened. New Hanover County Moms for Liberty, we were able to deliver over 2,320 pocket constitutions to 8th graders in New Hanover County in celebration of Constitution Day. So thank you for that. Also wanted to stress the importance, I think we've all learned through our own tragedy and weather event just 3 weeks ago, and then what we're seeing going on in the western part of the state, how important it is for the board and board officials to be in good communication with our emergency management response teams here. And whenever there is an opportunity to participate in those drills, I think everybody should take advantage of that. There is so much to learn. Making those connections is so priceless, especially when communications are down and everybody is in panic mode. I'd also like to address the policy you guys are going to discuss tonight, the 4318, regarding the search of wireless communication devices, the Section C of that policy. I'm a little concerned that would violate the Fourth Amendment of unreasonable searches, and it would expand the liability of not only the educator or staff member who's searching the phone, but the board as well. And I would advise everyone to maybe review that again. It does not give me any kind of, I wouldn't want to assume what kind of information that they're looking for, but they don't have a warrant, and I would find that's a violation of the Fourth Amendment right. Other than that, thanks so much. Have a good night.
Thank you. Sandy Isles.
Since the board likes to talk about safety, I thought it would be fun for us to grade you on this subject. Let's see how well you're doing. Question 1, was it safe for teachers to lure them to a town hall, lie to them about wanting honest feedback, and then retaliate against them for being honest? No. Question 2, is it safe for our teachers to have board members who lie that they are grooming students? No. Question 3, was it safe for our students to eliminate our Family Life program, which taught them about consent and how to protect themselves against grooming, sexual harassment, and assault? No. Question 4, is it safe for our children to be crammed into overcrowded schools and classrooms? No. Question 5, was it safe for our students to have student-facing staff positions slashed, denying them necessary supports and causing IEPs to not be followed? No. Question 6, is it safe for our children to have classes left unattended for any amount of time because there's not enough staff to provide coverage when a teacher is out? No. Question 7, was it safe when our board targeted our LGBTQ students and staff with homophobic and transphobic policies? No. Question 8, was it safe for our black students when you banned the book Stamp because you are afraid of white children reading about a black man's perspective? No. Question 9, is it safe for our children and teachers when you inflame culture wars? No. And finally, is it safe for our staff when the board ignores their feedback and plays victim? No. You have failed. You have literally done everything opposite of what is safe. Instead of blaming students, staff, and phones for our safety issues, we recommend that you hit the books, do some studying, and come back to us with the correct solutions.
Alicia Ogundelli.
Good evening. Tonight, Love Our Children asked the Board of Education to direct the Policy Committee to add the following sentences to short-term suspension policy 4351. Principals will contact K through 2 parents before a suspension determination is made. We are flexible. You don't have to use the exact word. You can change the word determination to decision. Then it would read, principals will contact K through 2 parents before a suspension decision is made. I'll take out the K through 2 and say principals will contact parents before a suspension decision is made. Last month I asked was, principals will call parents before a suspension determination is made. We're not partial to the word call. Principals can reach out to parents in many different ways, including text, emails, letters, and Zoom. In fact, since April of last year, we have revised our Policy Act several times. Each time we revised it, it was in response to what board members said during your meetings. So here we are, 19 months later. Who opposes the sentence, principals will contact K through 2 parents before a suspension determination is made? At the April Policy Committee meeting, Ms. Mason reported that principals are already contacting parents. So get it through the Policy Committee and let the full board vote on it. Do it in the name of transparency. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen Exelm.
Hello. The North Carolina State Education Assistance Authority administers the Opportunity Scholarship Program. Last year, it reported that private schools in New Hanover County received over $2.5 million in voucher funds from the state. Imagine what New Hanover County schools could have done with $2.5 million. Look at what Dr. Barnes just did with 1.1. Could have used it. Last week, Governor Cooper vetoed House Bill 10. House Bill 10 doubles down on funding private school tuition costs with a $554 million expansion of private school vouchers. This funding would largely go to wealthy families who can already afford the private schools. This bill also includes future funding that increases until 2032 and 33 when the program will reach $855 million per year. Since the voucher program started, New Hanover County schools, private schools in New Hanover County have received almost $9 million. Imagine what we could have done with $9 million. Maybe Mallory Weeks could be paid what she truly deserves. Maybe she could have the teaching assistants that she deserves in her school. The public schools in New Hanover County are being robbed. That is money that could be used for better teaching salaries, hiring more teaching assistants, counselors, social workers, and more training in neuroscience-based trauma-informed practices and programs. All of those things would help reduce out-of-school suspensions and keep kids in schools where they can learn and thrive. Tell our legislators that public money is for public education. Public money is for public education. Public money is for public education.
Thank you. Peter Rowich.
Love Our Children supports the right and authority of the principal to make a final determination as to whether 5, 6, or 7-year-olds will be suspended from school. Love Our Children also supports the part of the Code of Conduct that lists factors principals should consider for corrective responses, restorative practices, or disciplinary action. The first factor is the student's age, developmental level, and grade. We believe principals should also consider the neuroscience of the brain. All of our internal and external sensory systems go through the brainstem. The brainstem controls mostly regulatory functions like breathing and heart rate. There is no thinking or concept of time here. It's where we live in the moment and react. The cortex is the top. It's responsible for things like speech and language, thinking, planning, and understanding time. In other words, our brains are organized to act and feel before we think. Now, when the stress response system is activated in the brainstem because a child feels threatened, afraid, or not safe, the cortex shuts down. Principals should factor that in before kicking a 5, 6, or 7-year-old out of school. A dysregulated child is doing the best they can. They would behave better if they could. Instead of suspensions, give our youngest learners the social and emotional support they deserve.
Thank you, Mr. Rowich.
Thank you.
Loretta Stackhouse.
Good evening. At the August Board of Education meeting, Ms. Barnum gave a discipline data update. And at the end of her presentation, she announced New Hanover County Schools is no longer sanctioned for disproportionate out-of-school suspensions for students with disabilities. That was good news, but it wasn't all the news. 3 months earlier, Ms. Sosa, the Director of Special Education, was notified by the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction that the New Hanover County School is still being sanctioned for the disproportionate classification of Black disabled students as emotionally disturbed. The letter she received from the Department of Public Instruction stated that for being identified as having significant disproportionality for 3 consecutive years without reasonable progress toward reducing the rate, our school district is required to reserve IDA federal funds to provide comprehensive, coordinated, early intervening services to serve children in the identified subgroup. In other words, New Hanover County Schools, for the 7th year in a row, must set aside 15% of its federal special education funds that would normally be used for our special education programs. I hope you will invite Ms. Sosa to speak at the next board meeting. Addressing the significant disproportionality of Black education students, special education students, is long overdue. Consider this your monthly reminder of the fact that the system is broken.
Laura Axel.
Hi. Hello. Good evening. Oh, boy. I'm sorry. Yeah. Based on last year's budget discussions and last month's discussion of your legislative priorities, it would seem that the majority of the school board has no interest in the Leandro Plan. Remember the Leandro Plan? Since 1994, the Leandro v. State of North Carolina court case has consistently shown that children are being deprived of the sound basic education guaranteed by the state constitution. That includes all of our children here in New Hanover County. It's been estimated by Every Child North Carolina that under the Leandro Plan, New Hanover County would receive an additional, get this, $57.2 million annually. Imagine what we could do with an additional $57.2 million annually. Well, in addition to providing more support to early childhood education programs, it could fund 135 more teaching assistants, 166 more social workers, counselors, and psychologists, and $1,335 per teacher for professional development. All of these things would help reduce out-of-school suspensions and keep kids in school where they can learn and thrive. Thanks to Senator Berger and Representative Moore, both Republicans, the Leandro case is back in court. Love Our Children believes that Leandro funding should be at the top of your legislative priorities. Please tell our legislators to support the Leandro Plan for our students, teachers, and schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Jerry Winsett.
Good evening, everyone. At the agenda review meeting on Tuesday, July 30th, Mr. McManus and Dr. Barnes had the following exchange. Forgive my parodying your voice, I'm not going to do that. Mr. McManus, it is my understanding that every principal does in fact call parents before they suspend them. I'm referring this to discipline. Dr. Barnes, that's our expectation. I know that sometimes parents are sometimes harder to reach. Mr. McManus, oh, real hard, but they are trying to contact them. Dr. Barnes, correct, especially in K1, 2, and 3. Mr. McManus, so is that in writing? Dr. Barnes, I will check, but that is our expectation, but we'll make sure to make that clear. Mr. McManus, if they're all calling, then we've resolved an issue. And if it's in writing, I believe the principals certainly are calling. Then it would just resolve that issue immediately. Dr. Barnes, right, we can take care of that. Mr. McManus, okay, thank you. It was over 2 months ago. Love Our Children would like to know what Dr. Barnes found, and I know you will tell us because you've done so much this evening. Is the sentence, principals will contact K2 parents before a suspension determination is made, or something just similar to that? Contact instead of calling, in writing? If not, will you please recommend that the school board ask the policy committee to add it to short-term suspension policy 4351? Putting it in the policy will make absolutely certain that expectation is clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Veronica McLaurin Brown.
Supporting every student and staff members requires data-driven policies. Data helps you decide if programs are effective and address the needs of students. Data helps you make budget decisions that are fair and cost-effective. Data helps you ensure that your policy decisions are proactive, not reactive. So imagine, if you never received any short-term suspension data until the next school year, you wouldn't know if schools had decreased or increased their number of suspensions from the previous year, or how high the suspension disparity was for Black students compared to their peers, or the reasons 5, 6, and 7-year-olds were suspended. Ms. Varnum and Ms. Bean, Director of Communication, have informed us recently that due to a reduction in staffing, student support services monthly reports are no longer available. That means no data on suspensions, dropouts, sexual assault, sexual harassment, EC services, and more. No data for planning staff development, revising suspension policies, or developing next year's budget. You know, relying on data is like having a GPS for policy decisions. Without it, you end up in the middle of nowhere, stuck in a traffic jam of bad outcomes, such as failing schools, 7 years of sanctions by the federal government, suspensions that violate the discipline policy, and 70% of the teachers believing that you do not work effectively to improve the schools. You need the data to do your job. Stop suppressing the data. Data transparency today means student success tomorrow.
Thank you. Jeanette Kochar.
Good evening. Policy Code 4300 provides guidelines for addressing student behaviors. Decisions related to student behavior are guided by you, the board, to teach responsibility and respect for cultural and ideological differences, and by the board's commitment to creating safe, orderly, and inviting schools. Two of the guiding principles are a system that ensures dignity, respect, and fair treatment of all students, and strategies and consequences will be age and developmentally appropriate. So I ask you, how does kicking 5, 6, or 7-year-old child out of school help them be respectful? How does kicking a 5, 6, or 7-year-old out of school help them develop self-control? Maybe a prerequisite for being on the board of the school board is to take a child development course, including an understanding of ACEs, adverse childhood events. A refresher course on child development is essential because it allows us to fully appreciate the cognitive, emotional, physical, social, and educational growth that children go through from birth until early adulthood. 5, 6, and 7-year-olds are different developmentally than older kids. Love Our Children has spoken at every Board of Education meeting for the last 3 years and 7 months. Tonight is 3 years and 8 months. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Sometimes I wonder if we are just a bunch of crazy people. Yet never once have I heard a speaker, even those not part of Love Our Children, suggest we should kick 5, 6, and 7-year-olds out of school. And I have never once heard a school board member tell us why kicking out 5, 6, and 7-year-olds is a great idea. Every single Love Our Children speaker offers you solid solutions that we know will work. I have passed on before the advice from my dad.
Thank you. Your time is up. Linda Higgins.
Tonight, first of all, I would like to thank you. To thank you for looking at an app that would actually teach our children to manage their cell phone use, rather than just trying to eliminate cell phones, which are ubiquitous within our culture. They are a reality in our world, and students need to learn to manage them. On the other hand, I am very saddened that you entrapped staff by inviting them to a town hall to share their opinion, and then allowed them to be spoken to because you didn't like the way they said it. You'd already read the surveys, you knew how upset people were. That was entrapment. Our staff deserve better. I am also truly saddened that you would use the school board meetings to lie to the community, saying that you were no longer under sanctions, only for us to find out that the sanction has simply changed from one group to another. We deserve the truth from you the first time. These meetings should not take this kind of energy from advocates to protect our students and staff. They should be boring meetings that a few of us come to because we want to make sure that things are happening as they should. The fact that we all have to come, we all have to speak because of the fact that that's what it takes to protect our students and staff is just sad.
Thank you. Angie Caney.
Many of you referenced the sexual assault victims in your campaigns to get elected, and then the first thing you did was attack Title IX, the federal law that protects students against sexual assault, as well as LGBTQ kids and victims of bullying. Many of you claim to be EC advocates, but does that apply to students with multiple diagnoses or just the one that you are familiar with? And without Title IX, how do we protect those kids from being jumped and beaten by bullies to the point of needing medical attention? How should they defend themselves? And should they be interrogated by police or have their belongings destroyed in a search while bleeding, injured, and waiting for a parent? Should any child be questioned without an advocate? Switching gears. To answer a few questions raised last month, since you won't have discussions with advocates who have built trust within this community with firsthand knowledge, this is Narcan. It's not an injection. It's a nasal spray. It's easy to use. It works immediately. And if I administered it to any of you right now without even having drug exposure, there would be no harmful side effects. Both the training and access to Narcan is inexpensive, free even, and accessible. Every teen and family that I work with is familiar. Why? Because no one consciously makes a decision to take fentanyl. And it's almost always accidental, fatal, without immediate access to Narcan. It can be in food or on substances, and we even have had administrators accidentally exposed. The difference, they were immediately administered Narcan without question. But students don't always have that option, as there isn't a straight answer on who and when it can be administered. If we could just take a second to shift from blaming, dividing, judging, and criminalizing students to connecting, protecting, and listening to them, we might just find that the climate in our schools could change to the point where you wouldn't need to illegally interrogate and prohibit cell phone use to hide the harsh reality of what goes on in our schools that you don't want the public to know about. You could be transparent for once, and our schools might be safe.
Thank you, Ms. Caney. Time is up. David Perry.
Good evening. I'm David Perry, and as you know, I'm a candidate for this school board this year, and this will be my last chance to address you as a board before the election. Over the last year, I've spoke here several times, sometimes in support of what our Republican-led board has been doing, and sometimes in opposition. Tonight, I have to be in opposition, specifically to Policy 4318 regarding the use of wireless communications devices. And we know everybody recognizes there's a problem. You know, the cell phones can be extremely distracting and impede learning, so something needs to be done. But this policy is not the answer. And it's not the answer because not only can school personnel search and seize children's cell phones, they can now hack into them and view all their contents. This means your child's private photos, text messages, call history, contacts, email, social media posts, all of it's up for grabs. Now, this is a clear violation of the Fourth Amendment. And I hope that you would really start thinking about our students' rights and bring this back to policy and fix it. The Bill of Rights is not just, a set of suggestions that you as a school board get to skirt around or ignore when they become inconvenient for you. This is the Constitution. This is the highest law of our land. And that is why the rights of parents and the rights of students are going to be my most important thing I do when I get on this board to protect them. And since I have 20 seconds left, I hope you'll vote, consider that when you vote. But I invite everybody out tomorrow to CFC Union Station Auditorium, where we're going to have 7:15 p.m. for the candidates debate. Thank you.
Thank you. Tim Merrick.
Good evening. Tim Merrick, Carolina Beach, again, candidate for the board, and thank you very much, Dr. Barnes. Last month, I stood here to warn against allowing Moms for Liberty to hand out pocket constitutions to our 8th graders. We were told they were only going to contain a logo of a political activist group who supplied them. And as I said, I love the idea of our students having a constitution, but we have policies that restrict outside organizations from advertising on school materials, especially political organizations. This board, I will remind you, has been outspoken in your concerns about political activism. The constitutions that were delivered to our schools had many pages of political commentary, complete with an internet link for students to sign up and learn more about that organization. Thankfully, Dr. Barnes did the right thing and halted the dissemination of this propaganda. Could Moms for Liberty have been more disingenuous? My Republican opponents have signed on to Moms for Liberty, and it seems some of you are also supporters, and that's really concerning to me. There's been a lot of fear and accusations that our children are being indoctrinated, but it's not from our teachers. It's an extreme hate group who wants to rule over our schools. Those that support Moms for Liberty, those that lie to bypass our policies for their own political gain should not be making decisions about our children's future. Thank you.
And that concludes our call to audience.
Thank everyone that spoke today. One, you brought some very, very important information to us. But you also, I do want to highlight that you also followed the rules and were, looked at the 2 minutes, and we really do appreciate that. Thank you very much for that. At this time, I'm going to take we will take a 5-minute break. My watch, or the clock says 6:57. Let's go ahead and be back on the dais at 7:05, please. That gives us a couple of 8 minutes. of us.
Chairman, I believe Ms. Crable might ask you here.
Ms. Crable, are you on? That gives us 3. Oh, we need 4 more.
Yes, I'm on.
Okay, that gives us 3. We need 1 more to join. We can start. Yeah. Ding, ding, ding. We need a buzzer back there. Okay, we'll carry on. Welcome back. We have Ms. Craybill, so that gives us enough. All right. Next, we have our consensus items. I don't have superintendent, but.
I make a motion to approve the consensus items.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion to approve the consensus items. Do we have a second?
Second.
Pause.
Pause. Oh,
Yes.
that's right, you.
You have to remove, yeah.
I need to
Move yourself from
remove
A.
myself from voting for A.
Okay.
So if we could amend that and pull A
Okay.
out.
I will make a motion that we, or you can make the motion to amend.
Without
All
A.
items except for A.
Yeah.
I will second that. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve all items except for letter A. All in favor?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Dr. Barnes, this that we got on our, this is an MOU, is this somehow in it?
No, that is something that's upcoming in the
Okay.
months to come.
Thank you, never mind, I'm good.
Okay, we have a motion, second, any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of all the consensus items with the exception of A, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, that carries 7-0. I would make a motion that we approve item A.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of item A, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, that carries 6-0, with 1 out. Moving on to policy. Ms. Mason.
Yes, for policy consensus, these are policies and I believe the universal application that were discussed with various vital individuals. And I make a motion that we approve policy 4318, 3220, 4004, and the universal committee and trust form.
Is there a second?
Mr.
We need a second first.
Mr. Wilmore?
Yeah, we have a second. Okay, now, Ms. Bradford and then Ms. Craybill.
I would prefer.
Thank you.
I would prefer to pull policy 4318 off for a little just minute discussion. Use of wireless communication devices, specifically section 3. I'd like to ask the attorney a question about it, please.
Okay. So we have a motion to pull that. We can go ahead and do that. Is there any other? Go ahead, Ms. Craybill.
Yes, I want to pull off for discussion, student voice policy 4004 and universal committee interest form.
Okay. So 3220 is left. All right. Any other discussion? Hearing none? Oh, go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just had a question for the 3220. I didn't know if the policy committee and the corresponding staff had considered language to talk about the support of how we could help educate our parents and our community with the AI use as well. I think it did a really good job outlining that. I just didn't know if there was some thought or potentially something we could add as we move forward in the future.
Yes, excuse me. We are putting all the documents, the guidance documents, and the stance on our website. And then we also are working with student supports, the PAC committee, so that way we'll be doing some presentations then as well. When we had the coffee or whatever it was that we had here, that got cut off. We did have some people there to talk. I don't know if they're going to reschedule that with CNI, but yes, we plan to put some information out for parents as well, so that way they are informed as far as what the expectation is in school and how we're going to educate.
Thank you. I appreciate hearing that because I know that there's just questions and concerns, and when I sit down and talk to people who are using it and explaining it, it's very nice. I think our community could also benefit from that, and so I love to hear that you say that. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right, so the only policy we have in front of us right now is 3220. We have a first and second on, we do have a first and second, yes, we do. All in favor of passing policy 3220, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
There we go. All opposed? Carries 7-0. Let's start at the top with 4318. Ms. Bradford, you asked for that to be removed?
Yes, sir. 4318 is our use of wireless communications. We made just a minor change or two to that, but I would like to ask the attorneys, 4318, Section C, is it a violation of students' rights?
No. The Fourth Amendment does apply in schools, but students have a lesser expectation of privacy than ordinary citizens because it's kind of an institutional setting. And the staff, the school staff, has kind of a custodial role over them. So the standard in schools for students is just reasonable suspicion, not outright probable cause. And that's why the language, I think, and I didn't write C, but it says when a school official has reason to believe that the search will provide evidence that the student violated or is violating a law or policy. That's the distinction between what could happen in a school setting versus what happens on the sidewalk for an ordinary citizen. So I don't think that that's problematic. The staff still has to have that reasonable suspicion under the policy before they start looking. And let's face it, before you're looking at somebody's internet history or whatever, their phone, their pictures on their phone, to get that reasonable suspicion, you'd have to see it, you'd have to have somebody else say, hey, Fred's got, sending around pictures of this or that. So you can't just randomly search everybody. You have to have some level of suspicion. Now, you can randomly search lockers. That's a different story. But when we're talking about the phone, I think that was the concern. You do have to have some level of suspicion that they've done something you shouldn't do. And I'm sorry I gave you that real long explanation about it. But
Thank you.
Ms. Mason?
If I could add real quick.
And I was just going to ask you to.
A couple of years ago, I know principals received training from a different law firm who also made sure that principals understood as far as the very last sentence where it talks about the scope of the search must be reasonable and related to the objectives of the search and not excessively intrusive. So if you're looking for pictures, you can't be looking in their email or whatever. If you're looking for a text message, that's where you need to be in the text messages and not necessarily in the photos. So there was specific instructions given to principals and administrators that, you can't just wide open search anywhere you want on the phone. You do need to limit it to basically what it is you're specifically looking for.
not just rummaging around, it's focused in on, as you said, what you're looking for, what gives you that reasonable suspicion to believe.
I had a question, where it says whenever a school official, where does that begin and end? If a teacher, is that a school official? If the teacher says, I would like to look at this, is that, or does it have to be an administrator, or does it have to be,
There wouldn't be really any distinction between, say, a teacher or an administrator there. I mean, but let's just say you think about the tail end of this, what happens if this stuff gets to court? And the reason it gets to court is because something's found, and somebody's trying to get it suppressed later in a case, a criminal case, generally speaking, or a disciplinary action. It's not really going to, in many instances, going to be important which one of the staff members found it. I suppose, depending on the circumstance, it could be the football coach looking at what's on the phone, or it may be the principal or assistant principal. But by and large, the school staff is empowered to do that. Now, obviously, we don't want people who don't understand what the constraints are under the policy doing that. But
Dr. Barnes?
Generally, we would rely on our administration principals, assistant principals, and above to work through that process, and teachers supporting that. So generally, we provide support and training for our administrators in addressing reasonable suspicion, processes, and policy.
And that section does cite policy 4342, which is the student search policy that talks very specifically about reasonable suspicion and suspicionless general searches, in addition to seized items and other such things. So that does reference that policy, so it lines up.
Ms. Walker?
So if I just correct him, this was just a simple word change. This policy has been in place for many, many years still. And at the very bottom, there's a state statute that references what school board's authority is as well. So what this is just a word change, right? It's been here already. This is not new.
Right.
That's what I'm asking. Okay.
Ms. Bradford?
With that, I move that we adopt policy 4318 as written.
First and second, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Ms. Grable, are you good?
I.
Okay. Okay, that carries. Okay. Carries 7-0. Ms. Grable, you actually asked to pull. I can't hear you, ma'am.
Never mind.
Ms. Grable, you asked to pull off 4004. Would you want to start the discussion?
Yes. Can you hear me?
We can hear you great now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you well now.
Okay, sorry. I had my little mouthpiece was moved. All right, so in that, I want to scroll down to D.
D as in David?
Okay. D as in David, yes, go back. Go D as in David, yes, sir. Okay, so and number 3, so you could go up a little bit higher. So where it says, and I apologize for missing the policy committee meeting, I just listened to it. The allow opportunities to include at least one high school student on board advisory committees, period. So I have a problem with that. 2 reasons. Number 1, it contradicts what we want to have on our sustainability committee, but I'll come back to that. But board advisory committees versus board committees, we have the Title IX Standing Board Committee, that student input on that would probably be very valuable as it pertains to them in school. And then in our sustainability committee, in the description that we have online, the description does not say that students won't be allowed. And I don't recall that being included in there. But just given Ms. Weeks' presentation about the garbage to gardens, there are many, many students who would, pardon me?
We're listening.
Okay, I'm hearing people talk. There are many, many students that are interested in that topic, and in fact, it's one of our CTE classes that they can take. So, not allowing students to be on that committee. So, I don't know why we have to strike that out. And then also ad hoc committees, to take that out of our policy when we don't know what other ad hoc committees might be formed in the future, that student input would be invaluable. So I just wanted to raise that point. And then if you go down to, that was 3B. So, and then 3B was struck completely. And I don't understand why they can't have representation and they can't have a voice in proportionate to the other committee members. So I don't know why we struck out B. I think that was wrong. So I wanted to bring that up. And then on the universal form, I'll just wait till the universal form till we get there. Excuse me?
Yes, ma'am. I said that's okay.
I'm hearing talking.
We're not.
I'm sorry.
We're listening.
Pardon me?
We are
Okay.
listening.
All
We're
right,
not
so
talking, but now I'm talking. All right, Ms. Mason.
Okay.
Just to address some of that, in that section, we eliminated B because it was redundant. We already mentioned in 3 that we were allowing opportunities to include at least one high school student. And so we felt that that was not needed to be repeated. Additionally, we talked further during policy about the committees that students are on and whether or not they are allowed to vote on those committees. Some of the committees that I am on currently have students, one of the committees that I am on has student representation, and they do not vote. But that is not up to the board to make that decision. That is up to that committee. They have their own bylaws. They have their own procedures. So just to address that. Additionally,
Yes, and I agree with that.
I'm not quite done. When we talked about the Sustainability Committee, we placed it under Advisory Committee because we wanted to be able to include students on that. So that is they are already allowed to be on that committee. As far as other committees that students are on, further discussion, we can have further discussion, but I don't know of any that involve or allow students to vote. I could be incorrect.
Others? Ms. Walker?
Obviously, I didn't listen to the policy committee meeting, obviously, we don't. I have to think about this because I think the original idea for the student voice is for them to have a voice on as many committees, to be involved with as many committees as possible. Whether or not that committee allows them to vote or not, that's another thing. But I think representation, I feel, is the most important part of the whole policy. And to Ms. Crable's point about scratching out ad hoc committees, ad hoc committees are, I guess, by definition, temporary committees that we do not know will be yet in the future. I mean, we did, I think you and I were on one for Isaac Bear, but they seem to come up. So I'm not sure why we would want to cross that out. I think it says allow opportunities. So even if they didn't vote on a regular standing board committee, which, how many do we have now? Is it like 3 or 4?
I'm right here. Legislative, policy, standing board, Title IX, calendar.
I guess my question is, could we not still let them be
Finance.
on there without voting privileges? I mean, that's all I would ask, is I hate to just, I like the fact that the board advisory committees is there, which technically I don't think board members even have voting privileges on those anyway, except for calendar, which.
Well, my hand is up.
Okay, I got you, but we have people that haven't spoken yet. Ms. Barnhart?
Okay, sorry.
Ms. Barnhart?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And when I was looking this over, this was a lot of when I had sat down with the student voice, when I was policy chairwoman, this was a lot of the changes that they had discussed with me. And then your explanation of just saying that it was already taken care of in another part of the policy, I think it suits very well to continue to allow opportunities without being redundant, so.
Mr. McManus?
Well, think I have been from the origin a big advocate for student voice. I'm sure I will not always agree with them as I did as a principal. I couldn't always agree. But back to when Dr. Barnes did his presentation, we're trying to make sure that everyone has access. And so I do believe that we should allow the kids to come in, the students, and be involved in those committees. Obviously, there are opportunities when it may involve personnel and or issues where they cannot be a part, and that would eliminate them. But I don't think that they need to come in with a vote. I think like other school systems, like Charlotte Meck has taken this to the votes. I mean, the kids are really powerful. But I think at its inception, with beginning this, that the kids should be allowed on all of it, but I don't think they should have a vote. Let's see how this thing works out. But I don't think we should leave them off at all. They should be involved, and they should be able to make comments. But I'm not sure about the vote the first year. So we see how it plays out. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Does to
Ms.
me.
Mason and Ms. Craybill.
In looking on our website at the standing committees, we have the Finance Committee, we have the Legislative Committee, we have the Policy Committee, we have the Student Scholarship for Future Teachers Committee, and we have the Title IX Committee. As far as advisory committees go, there, I believe, is more of those. There is the Advisory Council for Exceptional Students. There's the Calendar Committee. There's the CTE Business Advisory Council. There's the Curriculum Committee. There's Educator of the Year Committee. There's Gifted Advisory Council. There's Head Start Board of Directors. There's School Health Advisory Council. So there are a lot more of those than than any of the others. And the ad hoc committees listed are bond and capital request. I don't know as we need to make those changes. If students want to send information, if they want to give us concerns about policy, if they want to give us concerns about finance or legislation, they are absolutely welcome to do so. But as it stands now, none of those are listed. When it comes to who is on the committee, there are no students listed on those committees.
Ms. Craybill?
Yes, so back to my point. I can concede the voting because oftentimes on these advisory committees, it's not really voting, it's consensus taking. So, and any board member that is on an advisory committee weighs in and provides their input, as part of consensus. So I can go with taking out the voting, but I think that they should be allowed to participate in our committees and listen, because they need to be able to give their voice, and that including on policy. That they should be invited guests when their schedules allow and not just send us stuff in. That they need to learn and practice being advocates for themselves. So if we are not allowing them to participate on board committees, which Ms. Mason just read those off, and the Sustainability Committee doesn't show up on any of these lists. So it's hard to say what it was, and I don't remember what we actually voted on. But board committees, board advisory, and ad hocs come up from time to time. Just because they're not on any now doesn't mean that they can't. And just as an example, the SHAC committee requires a student representative, and student participation. So we have to, and that's advisory anyway, but so I would like to make a motion that we amend, if we're going to do it here from the dais or send it back to policy, we amend to allow opportunities to include at least one high school student on any board committee, a board advisory committee, and ad hoc committee.
Okay, is there a second?
I will second that.
We have first and second. Any further discussion?
I would like,
Actually, Ms. Barnhart was going to speak, because she hadn't spoken yet. Second time, then I'll have you speak the second time. Go ahead.
you did speak once.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was going to ask the chairwoman if she recommends the changes that are currently presented with the student voice policy. Thank you.
Ms. Walker?
This is my second time, I think, speaking. Okay. I would like to say, the spirit of the policy was to allow them a seat at a table and a voice at the table. And that's really what we're trying to honor here with us. I don't think there's anything wrong with them being there, especially if they don't have voting privileges, to at least have a voice. I don't know, they're not necessarily going to join all the committees all of a sudden, I don't believe. But I just think that that's the spirit of this policy from the get-go, was for them to have a seat at the table so they can give us their perspectives. And so that's why I'm supporting this amendment. Not to be disagreeable, I just really would hope that, students would be welcomed at the table.
Okay, and just to be clear, make sure everybody understands, the amendment that Ms. Craybill is bringing up is on Section 3 to add the words board committees and ad hoc committees back in. Is that correct, Ms. Craybill?
Yes, it is.
Okay, all right. So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, we're going to vote on the amendment first, which is to add those 6 words back in. Ms. Bowie, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Barnhart?
No.
Ms. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Wildeboard?
No.
Mr. McManus?
Yes.
Ms. Mason?
No.
Ms. Craybill?
Yes.
And Ms. Bradford?
No.
Okay, so that is defeated.
I make a motion to adopt the policy as presented.
We have a motion to accept the policies.
Second.
First and second, any discussion on that? Hearing none. Ms. Bowie, please call the roll.
Ms. Barnhart?
Yes.
Ms. Walker? Mr. Wildebohr?
Yes.
Ms. McManus? Ms. Mason?
Yes.
Ms. Craybill?
No.
And Ms. Bradford?
Okay, that passes 4-3. We will move on to our next, which is the
Wait a
universal.
minute, Mr. Wildebohr. Oh, sorry.
Ma'am, we're
Sorry.
moving on to the universal
Sorry.
committee. No problem. Universal, and that was Ms. Ms. Craybill. Ms. Craybill.
That was Miss Me.
Miss
Yeah,
Ms.
Miss
Craybill.
Me.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
You have the
Can
floor.
we put the whole, is there a way to get the whole form on the screen at one time? Right, okay, thanks, yeah, now I can't even read it, but that's okay. We have on the form, and we added sustainability, in Sustainability Committee under Board Advisory, so that doesn't match what our website says, so we'll have to fix that. But we have board standing committees on there, Title IX, and yet we're not allowing students to participate in any board committees. So then we're going to have to, how are we going to address when we have students up in the upper right box and they check Title IX? What are we going to do? Say, you're not allowed. I just think that they need to match up.
Good point.
And if we're not going to allow a student to be on the Title IX committee where they have valuable input, then I'm going to have to be opposed to that. But I like the whole form other than that.
Thank you. Ms. Barnhart?
Mr. Chair, if we could have a staff member talk about the process of working through the Universal Committee interest form. I know that I had sat down with Ms. Baggy a while ago to make sure that when people were interested in serving, it would go to contact the organizer of wherever the board was. If it was a standing committee, then it would go to a specific representative of the board or a central office staff, or if it was one that was a liaison committee, then it would go to contact that. So I think it might speak to Ms. Crable's question as regards to how we know it's being implemented. Because if a student or somebody is interested, what my understanding is they will fill this out, it goes to the immediate supervisor, and they are connected with the response of whether there is further qualifications that are needed. So just because there's interest in that doesn't mean you're automatically accepted. So if there's somebody that can speak to that.
Dr. Barnes?
Mr. Wildebohr, I don't know that that was the understanding that was made, because we were going to be setting up an email address that would go to our board clerk so that she could disseminate that information. So we had a running list of all people who were interested in the event that they did not get selected for this committee this time. We still had their interest on file. So I don't know what understanding that Ms. Barnhart was talking about. I don't think we ever came to that as a policy committee or as a board.
Ms. Mason, do you want to speak to that?
I was looking at the website and what we have listed additionally. There is no listing. When it talks about the committees, it generally says what it is comprised of. This committee works with the superintendent, the Title IX coordinator, and staff. It is comprised of 2 board members as well as staff and community members to ensure that students are not denied equal access to educational programming and opportunities on the basis of sex. Nowhere in there do I see students. Unfortunately, when I was on the Title IX committee, we did not have the opportunity to meet, so I was unaware that students could be involved. So I don't think that the communication on here is very clear, and so that would be why I would say it's on there.
Okay. Can anybody speak speak to where this form would go to afterwards?
Obviously, of the things I did this week, tracking the universal committee response form isn't one of them. If I can have a little bit of time to discover where that goes, I would assume that it depends on who's really the person chairing the committee. If it is a committee that is run by my team over here, then obviously that would come to them. If you'll just give me a little time, I can report back out to you guys how that form tracks and what we do with it, okay?
Well, I'd like to make a motion then that we put this back into committee to get those answers.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
I just want to say this is a board, Title IX is a board standing committee, right? So it's headed by a board member.
Yes, actually her.
Right. But I'm saying, because Dr. Barnes, you're talking about what staff
By
member.
me, yeah.
Yes, that's what I just said, I pointed
Yes.
out. So, okay, we have a first and second to send this back to committee. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
That passes 7-0. We'll put that back in committee. Ms. Mason, our next section is policy for second reading.
So this was sent to us last month for first reading. This is just the second reading. We just need to review and approve, so I would make a motion to approve.
I'll second that. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? You're Ms.
Oh,
Craybill?
I'm sorry, yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right.
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. We'll go on to old business. There she is, right back there. Come on up. Our New Hanover High School update. Mr. Anderson or?
Ms. Lawrence is here to give that update.
Ms.
and then
Lawrence, thank you.
Both of us can answer any questions that you might have.
Awesome. Oh, I'll start with Ms. Walker.
I am glad to be here to give you an update on the progress made over the past month at Hanover. And this is specifically related to Phase 1 of the repairs at the main building at Hanover and also the mobile unit installation that's occurring adjacent to George West. So Phase 1 is a little bit of a recap. Phase 1 has 3 primary components: stabilization of the foundation along the southern wall and eastern flanking walls, and this is the main elevation that faces Market Street. That work is well underway. We're about a third of the way complete with that. We're installing micro piles to help augment the foundation and prevent any further settlement. It's going a little slower than we anticipated. They're running into bedrock as they drill, but they are making steady progress with that part of Phase 1. Another component of Phase 1 was the temporary shoring of the eastern and western flanking walls, and that's being completed this week. And then the third primary component is the removal of the sheetrock and plaster on the interior face of that southern elevation. The purpose for that scope was to identify whether or not that southern wall could be repaired or if it would have to be replaced, similar to what we're going to have to do on the eastern and western flanking walls. The good news is that we've discovered that that wall is in better shape, that southern elevation wall is in better shape than the eastern and western walls. So we do not anticipate that that southern wall will have to be removed in our next phase, Phase 2, but we believe it can be repaired. There'll have to be probably some supplemental structural components that are added to help support the wall, but we don't believe that wall will have to be repaired. So Phase 2, as we look ahead to Phase 2, what Phase 2 would be scope of work that allows us to reoccupy those spaces and get kids back into the classrooms and get this office back into the main entry so that could be utilized. And Phase 2, we know, is going to include removing and replacing those eastern and western walls. They're just not in a shape that can be repaired. But happily, as I noted, we believe we'll be able to repair that southern wall. Phase 1 is fully funded, and it will be completed at the end of November. Phase 2, we don't have funding for as of yet, and the county is aware of this. We've been communicating with them. They requested from us in late August, and we provided in about mid-September They requested a worst-case scenario cost model for what the repairs would have to be for Phase 2 if we had to remove the entire southern wall along with the eastern and western walls. So we provided them that data. That cost was about $9.1 million. But when we presented that information, we were able to advise that at that time we had already assessed that southern wall, and we believed that that southern wall could be repaired and not have to be replaced. Subsequently, the county requested a revised cost model. They want to know what would the Phase 2 cost be with the repair of the southern wall as opposed to the replacement of the southern wall. We are tasked with developing that cost model, and I'm working with the design team, with the contractors right now, and by the 4th of November, the county has requested that we provide this Phase 2 cost model, which would be the replacement of the eastern and western walls, repair of the southern wall, as well as we would need to do some interior finish work. It's what we need to do to be able to reoccupy those spaces. That's what Phase 2 would entail. So by the 4th of November, we have to provide that cost model to them. The county intends, as I understand, to place the cost information, this cost estimate, on the agenda for the November 18th County Commissioners meeting for the commissioners to be able to consider the funding for Phase 2. Our goal is to present this information in as timely of a manner as possible so that when we complete Phase 1 at the end of November, we could roll right into, as quickly as possible, Phase 2, with the ultimate goal being to reoccupy classroom space in as early as possible within the school year 25-26. So how we will do that, there may be some phasing of that. We're kind of ironing those components out right now, but that's our strategy for giving cost information to the county so that we could proceed with Phase 2. In addition to the Phase 1 work that's ongoing, obviously you know that we've brought mobile units onto the site. Where we stand on that schedule, the units are on site. The aluminum deck and ramp system is being completed this week into the early part of next week. We had a little bit of a ripple effect from the unnamed storm that came through that affected some of the work of the trades. So we're a little bit behind where we wanted to be. But the good news is the plumbing inspection is complete, electrical work is done. We'll be powering up the units here in the next few days. We anticipate by the end of next week, we'll have a certificate of occupancy. And then the week of October 14th, we will be moving into those units for use by the school at long last. But that's my update, and we are happy to answer any questions you may have.
Ms. Walker?
Thank you. So I know this is probably something you may not be able to answer, but the amount of money that's going into repairs, I guess, how is it going to tie into this study analysis and the cost it will eventually be? Because we don't know what the study's going to say necessarily. Sounds to me like major repairs are being done to the walls, which they're like foundational walls. They're walls that like they have to be repaired for safety reasons. But once they're repaired, you have to do the study to find out if, because people are asking in the community, are we going to have to tear it down? Are we going to,
So can I
I've talked to
address
alumni that don't want that, but.
So the way I look at it is, we again, there's two projects. There's the long-term facility assessment and master plan, and then there's the immediate repairs.
Right.
And I know that we don't like spending, whether it turns out to be $4 million, $5 million, $6 million. We certainly don't like to spend that money on a building with the thought that down the road, we may abandon the building or tear it down. However, keep in mind, a new high school is in excess of $150 million, not including the land, if we could find 70 acres. So even if we had the money today, we're 5 years away from moving into that new high school on land that, let's say we have it. So we don't, you hate to spend the money, but on the other hand, I don't think we really have a choice. We have a safety issue that we have to address, and the truth is, Hanover cannot operate like they're operating for 5, 6, 7, or 8 years when we open up a new high school. If we open up a new high school.
Right,
And
no.
that's a big if. I mean, the whole purpose of the study is to determine, what are the renovation needs first, and then the cost. And then we'll go through the process of doing that comparison.
So I totally get that, but do they get that? That's my question.
Does-
Because the commissioners in the end are going to have to either bond or figure out how to pay for a new school. So that,
We have, they've asked that question, and my response was exactly that. I don't think we can really make an educated decision on Hanover until we get this study back.
right. And this is one follow-up, sorry, Mr. Chair. So this includes the whole campus, right, including 13th and Ann? This study, facility
Yes.
study? Okay.
Yes, it will.
Okay.
Ms. Bradford and Ms. Barnhart?
So if I understood it, the estimate that we had was 9.1 million, and that included the southern wall. So we know if we take the southern wall out at this point, it's going to be under the 9.1, right?
It will. We'll still have repair work we have to make, but that 9.1 million was a replacement of that whole eastern, western, and southern wall. So it was worst case. It will be, we believe we're under that.
Okay. The other night, I heard a county commissioner talking about just what Ms. Walker said, a current county commissioner talking about, if we have to tear it down or if we have to remodel it in place. And Mr. Anderson, you said that, it would take 70 acres to put a new high school down. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do we have a 70-acre parcel of property anywhere?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So one thing I want to, I've spoken to a couple of you privately, but I want to put it out here publicly. You brought to us last week at the agenda review about Dorothy B. Johnson and that piece of property and selling 20 acres of it to the Department of Transportation for $1.7 million. Is the Dorothy B. Johnson a property that we could build a high school on with that 20 acres now? Have we not considered that before we consider selling it to the DOT? And I'd love for somebody to come to me with an official answer for that, because it's going to be asked of you by the county commissioners, I'm sure.
So the acreage that we're selling is part of the right-of-way. I believe it's 13 acres, not 20.
Okay.
I could go back and verify that. Dorothy B. Johnson is 40 acres.
40.
I would hope that if we were going to abandon the current site, that we would look for a solution that gave New Hanover something comparable to all the other high schools, and not try to, squeeze them on a 40-acre site, because that's part of the problem we have with Hanover now. Yes, it would be slightly larger. It would give them a little more breathing room, but ultimately, I think the solution at Hanover has to be a solution that's equitable with the other traditional high schools.
So my follow-up question would be, could we take that Dorothy B. Johnson property and trade the DOT for a piece of property they have somewhere else that we could build on? You know what I'm saying?
Are they just going to go out and Devin's going to walk?
Ms. Graybill?
You have to mute, Graybill.
Oh, sorry.
Did you understand me?
Could we?
Yeah.
Potentially. I think the more likely scenario would be, let's take the money that we get for the right-of-way and look for property that could expand the Hanover site.
You can't buy much with that amount of money in New Hanover County.
Barnhart?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Lawrence, I just want to say thank you very much for sharing that you are going to the county with the presentation. This is really important that we are in partnership with them. I was speaking to a few county commissioners the other day, and they were talking about the process and the progress of where we're at. And so I was explaining just what you kind of recapped to us. And so making sure they're in the loop and keeping them informed is imperative to get our students back into the building faster. And I'm sure the staff to have a big sigh of relief once this is over. One of the things, and I don't need an answer right now, but one of the things I want to put out there is I know that a lot of the capital funding that we received in last year's budget cycle, we were in the bidding process and getting all those things out. And so if we could just get an update of where that is too, because that was another question that they had for me. And I said, let me check into that before I just rattle off what I recall off of memory from a number. So looking into that, but thank you for being there. I have a conference that I'm out of town for on the 18th, but thank you for representing us, and hopefully some of my other fellow board members will be able to be there in attendance and support. Thank you.
Ms. Craybill? Ms. Craybill?
No, I don't have anything.
Okay.
I think the report is good. It's a little depressing, but I agree with Mr. Anderson is that we need to make sure in all of this that New Hanover is comparable to the other 4 high schools.
Right. Any other questions?
Actually, the other 4 traditional high schools.
No. Ms. Lawrence, thank you very much for the
Thank you.
update. We'll move on to our board norms. Just a bit of information. One thing about the board norms, we'll go through them in just a minute, but we would like to use these as we meet with the various candidates for Board of Education. And so we do need to, if we can kind of approve those today or tweak them and then approve them. I think it is very important that we start out by saying that we're going to adhere to the established policies on how we conduct business, and then going through the general expectations include but are not limited to, and the 7 are there. Is there any questions about those? We were going to talk about them last Tuesday,
Can
but we
you
ran
please
out
put the
of time.
board norms on the screen?
They're right there?
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay. Any discussion?
Where do we stand with the suggestions that we had, that Ms. Mason gave us, and then we gave her corrections, and where do we stand with that? Did anything get done with it?
Don't know.
I received those on a separate document.
Okay, do we need to bring them in here and so we can discuss them? Do you have them? We can get to them, Mr. Mason?
Let me pull them up.
And just while we wait, a lot of what the suggestions were was bringing in the actual policy code, the number of it, and then what it was, so that instead of saying, we abide by 2120, it says Policy Code 2120, Code of Ethics for School Board Members, so that you can easily see what you're referencing there. There were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those. And I would think that if we're going to talk about 2340 parliamentary procedure, we could go ahead and note that we follow Robert Rules of Order, the 12th edition, newly revised. So there's never any question in the future, again, about which Roberts that we're following, where it's the abridged or the Cliff Notes or the this, but just go ahead and put that in there. The books that we bought for the board members, the version that we follow, just go ahead and note that in 2340. And if the board if that's their pleasure, we could put it on the policy committee meeting to add it at a later date.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe these were sent after I had already forwarded the information to Ms. Bowie for last week's meeting. And so this did not get added because I don't recall receiving these before that. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't remember the exact date. Sorry.
We can add them at this time if we want to. That's it's the pleasure of the board.
I think the problem is the only recipients were myself, you, and Dr. Barnes. So the rest of the board has not had the opportunity to see them.
Mr. Chair, may I make a suggestion?
Yes, ma'am.
Given the fact that the election is in November, we could put this back in committee, bring forth the changes, have the opportunity for the policy committee to discuss and bring forth to the board, so all of us have the option to see it, still vote on it in November, have an approved document prior to the new members being sworn in, and give us time to.
The only thing was we wanted to actually be able to discuss it with them when we met with them, but I guess we could, go ahead.
If I can.
Please.
I think, and for the community to know as well, I think the strength in what you guys are proposing as a board lies in the fact that it speaks specifically about the board member code of ethics. And I know that some people are going to get lost in those general expectations that those are just additional things about the manner of how the board conducts its business. The fact that the board is standing firm in the fact that we should follow our code of ethics and our policies, I think is a strong statement. I think we can always move forward and have that meeting with our candidates and share with them policy 2120 and 2122.
Right.
And I think in that regard, I think I didn't want to get lost in the expectations without verifying the fact that this is a very strong statement from you as a board about the way it conducts its business with its public. And I just wanted to make sure that didn't go without saying.
Ms. Barnhart, would you like to make a motion then?
My hand is raised.
Oh, okay, go ahead, Ms. Graybill.
Mine too.
Yes,
Okay.
I just wanted to, 2 points, wanted to clarify. The Robert's Rules of Orders is in our policy, but there are exceptions and there are workarounds for small boards versus large boards. And I think we need to all recognize and come to the conclusion that we are a small board. And so some of Robert's rules may be overkill for us. So I don't see Robert's rules in these board norms other than, in our policy. But I also wanted to say that when we on number 2, return each other's phone calls, texts, and emails, nowhere in there does it say that we will communicate with all board members as appropriate. So whatever policy that falls in, then we probably should include that, because there have been instances where we're not doing that as well. And then there was, I don't have the board norms with me that we had before, so, and there was another one that was interesting that the board took out, during, the board that were present at the meeting took out. So I can't complain, I wasn't there, but I just wanted to, I agree with Ms. Mason that we should revisit them so that all of us have the opportunity to see what we're agreeing to.
Thank you. Ms. Walker?
But, yeah.
Gosh, there's so many. The board norms are going to be a policy, or are they just going to be, hey, this is what we're going to try and do? I'll tell you, because I have 4 years experience now on boards, 2 different ones. And to Ms. Crabill's point about the smaller committees, I feel like over the years, it has really been picked apart. Sometimes we use it, sometimes we don't. And I don't know. I mean, we can have board norms all we want. If we don't follow them, it's going to be difficult. And I'm just speaking from experience that, like, sometimes people pick and choose which ones they want to use. And I think it has to be a serious commitment. Saying that, 3 of us are going to be done, so it probably would be better. I mean, these candidates come, they hear our meetings, they know, they can go online and look at these themselves as well. And when you talk about it with them, then, because you just don't know who it's going to be. But it shouldn't matter, right? It really, really shouldn't matter. Board norms should be board norms, period. But I'll just say this, I just hope everybody really does follow them. It's not been the case before.
Ms. Bradford?
You had asked me at the agenda briefing to write the language for a number 8 to the board norms, which is what I responded to. And then Ms. Mason had asked for any corrections or clarifications or whatever, which is what I responded to. But number 8 was supposed to be, board members will put students and staff first over their personal opinions, and once a decision of the majority of the board has been established by a majority vote. So if you wanted to approve it tonight, I would move that we add that. But if Ms. Barnhart wants her motion still on the floor to move it back into policy and clean up some of this, we can do that too. Whatever Dr. Barnes needs to let the superintendents know that we've got their back, and that to let the candidates know that we're trying really hard to follow our code of ethics. That's our goal. We actually raise our hands and say we're going to abide by the policies when we get sworn in.
Thank you. Ms. Mason?
So several things. I think that in discussion with Dr. Barnes, this was just a notification to the public that this is what we are going to do. This is what we are going to abide by. I don't think it was meant to be comprehensive. That's why we're referencing policy. I don't want it to be inundated, and we can discuss this further, but I don't want it to be inundated with this and this and this and this and this. I think keeping it simple is best. I think that there's some definite changes we can make. I don't believe it's policy, so I don't know if sending it back to policy would be appropriate. But will of the board is will of the board. And I would hope, I know what my other thing was. Dr. Barnes, how soon are we planning to have those meetings?
I would tell you, it's running out of time. Within the
35
next
days.
couple of weeks, if it please the board, what if I just sort of gathered this all together and sent it to you guys to look at, and I'll bring you back a finalized copy?
Okay.
That you guys can agree with and feel good about, and I agree that, what's the KISS method, keep it simple.
We do have a motion, though, on the table, so we have to,
So she can.
I'll rescind my motion.
okay. Ms. Walker?
So last thing, I felt like, Dr. Barnes, that you say we should all sign it. Make it a contract. Because I feel like if you put your signature on it, it really means a lot more.
It does.
Not just
I
say,
really
oh, I'm going to do it, because it kind of holds ourselves accountable to that. Because otherwise, there's no other way to hold ourselves accountable, except I've been through 2 or 3 of them, and they don't work, so.
I agree with you 200%, not 100%, 200%.
And I'll say that I got that idea from some of our great teachers who work in this district. You set up classroom agreements, and all the kids sign them, so, yep.
Okay. We're getting close, guys.
Mr. Wildebohr?
Ms. Craybill?
Mr. Wildebohr, my hand is up. Okay. Yeah, so I just wanted to,
I'm looking, I don't see it. Anyway,
My-
go ahead.
okay, so I just wanted to I wanted to support that we sign, but I also was taking into account what Ms. Barnhart had said about waiting for the new people, because we did have board norms at one time, and several board members were saying that I didn't create them, so therefore I'm not following them. So I think we wanted, impress upon new board members that this is what we decided, but that doesn't mean that they're going to stay just because we wrote them when new people. And just also wanted to reiterate that this is not a policy. It's my understanding that this is not a policy. This is a board working document that we can still post online, on our assembly page, but this is not policy. Is that correct?
That's my understanding, ma'am.
Okay, I'm just making sure, because several people have said send it back to policy, and it's not a policy.
That's a good point. Okay, well, we were going to move on with that. Next, we have the Career and Leadership Development Academy. Ms. Barnhart, you brought that forth?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Board members, I had sent an email before the agenda review about the consideration for nomination for Champion of Education. NCSBA has an opportunity for us to nominate different agencies of support, and I was going to bring to the table a discussion of us nominating the CLDA program, and we've been able to expand that to the 7th graders for every single one of them this year. All it is an application to the NCSBA process to potentially honor them. They're not necessarily going to get it, but I just wanted to bring it before the board because the application closes by this month. So my recommendation and my motion would be to allow Dr. Barnes and staff to submit the CLDA program for nomination of the Champion of Education.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Ms. Walker?
So has this been already discussed with Dr. Barnes? You know about this, Dr. Barnes, or are you writing that down? Oh,
Good.
That was a very vigorous thumbs up. I don't even know. Okay, so all it needs is you to help fill the application and us to approve the application. Is that all that is?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion? Ms. Craybill, anything?
No.
Okay. All right. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, we have a 7-0 call there, a vote there, so that passes. Dr. Barnes, get to working, please. Thank you, sir. All right, next we look over to my extreme right. Ms. Walker, task force update, please.
Make it snappy. What was that? Okay, I will try and make this brief. I've been told I have 2 minutes, so he gave me an extra minute. I appreciate that. I'll make this as quick as possible. So basically, the task force, we've been meeting for just over a year now. We've come up with 4 main goals, and I know a couple board members have seen this, or actually, I've passed this out before, so you've all probably seen this. Every child enters kindergarten at grade level, and of course, there's things under that. Literacy at all levels, positive culture in every classroom in school, and graduating seniors can have access to college or trade certification programs. Those are the 4, and so that's under the heading of improved educational outcomes as a driver of economic and workforce development for New Hanover County. So there's a lot that goes with this. There are 4 main committees. They are all headed by different folks. I sit on the ECO committee, which is Early Childhood Opportunities, that is chaired by Jane Morrow of NC Smart Start. And, everyone has a committee that they're in charge of. So we, the ECO committee, have met probably for almost a year now as well. And what we're trying to do is figure out how we somehow work out the preschool question. And I say question, it's not even just as simple as that. There are so many things that go with that. But I will, in the end, what all these committees are hoping to do is to formulate some kind of cost to that and how it gets implemented and how we work together, not just as a school district, but a community at large. Because the task force, there are a lot of members. We have chamber folks, we have UNCW, Cape Fear, we have county commissioners, city council people, and they're all here to listen and participate and figure out how we all work some of these things out together. And I'm happy to say that all our meetings, we do have a member of the endowment that does show up every time. And that makes me happy because that means they're paying attention to all the work that we're doing. Secondly, we had a really good meeting on, was it yesterday? It was a principals meeting. I think it was yesterday. I'm sorry, I have a lot going on. Because thanks to Mr. Wildebohr and Jared that was there, at the last task force meeting, he basically said we should be listening to principals more. And so that's what we did. We had 8 principals. We met in the Spencer building yesterday. And we got to meet the new CEO of the endowment as well. He came and visited and sat in on it. And we got feedback about these goals. And of course, it was presented to them. And we did get some really good feedback. So we are working. Our next meeting is October 9th, I believe. And so we're going to keep working. And I've also sent in a description for it to be an advisory committee with Ms. Mason. And hopefully we'll work that out to be on the agenda next month for approval. And that is, I could go on, but I think I went over my 2 minutes, so. I know.
I won't say anything, but you got me pushed one of my buttons.
I'm sorry.
At the last, I think it was the last meeting or meeting prior to, Dr. Hamilton was talking about the summer school RTA program, and I asked her for the numbers. And I thank you very much for getting me those numbers, which I think that if we're closing, I'd like to say this, I will say it again. Our reading is paramount to success. You can even do math on a computer, but if you can't read, you can't do it. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I wrote it down after you sent it to me. 1,487 students were identified to go to summer school, 2nd and 3rd graders. 445 went to summer, attended. 445 out of 1,487. So I go back to the summer school we had a couple years ago for 3rd graders, when we had 1,200 identified and 500 showed up. Folks, reading is the single most important thing to get ahead. So we talk about academics and focus and education. Why are we not making these students come to school? Or we get out of the box, as I say, and they have a special program. There's a million things we can do. Now, these kids are going to the next grade, and they're going in. Look at the 2 years ago that was put out with the scores. Look at New Hanover High School and the percent of students and their reading level going in to English and math. We're perpetuating it by ignoring it. We allow kids, how many kids will we pass every year that cannot read and write, but read on grade level? Why is that not a top priority for us? I won't be here, but by God, y'all will be. get something to focus on. How can you not? The numbers speak volumes about we're not doing anything. We offer the program, we don't have to come.
Mr. Chair. I'm going to challenge that, though. We heard about the advanced teacher roles tonight. That is a way that we are actively engaging and getting our highly effective teachers in the classrooms and making sure that we are target focused for that purpose. And so I'm excited about that. That's something that we're doing that is exciting to help support that, because I agree with you. It's frustrating whenever kids don't come to summer school when we know that they need to be on level. So we have to think outside the box. And we got funding of what, $1.3 million to do the advanced teacher roles so that we can show the success so that kids can be on a different trajectory. So I'm excited about it. This is a joint excitement of saying we are doing stuff. Our teachers are doing stuff. They're working their tail off and they're doing it in a way that's going to be highly effective for our kids, and I'm excited about it, sir.
But how do you explain no one's required to come? Over 70%? Okay.
So what is stopping us? I'm piggybacking. I agree with him totally. Reading's been my focus this whole time. And yes, we've got advanced teaching roles. And yes, we've got the ELF program. So we're moving, we're inching along. But why can we not require that there was, if I did my math right, just 445 attended. That meant 1,042 who were identified chose not to attend, and we did not make them. Is it possible to make it mandatory? And if so, how would we do that?
I'll speak back to my days as principal at elementary school. And I remember, that basically if you offered it to them, you could do things, and tell me it may have changed, because that was years ago. And it may have changed, like that pressing the button. But I mean, that if they didn't come, then you could hold them back in a grade. But I don't know if that's if they didn't basically pass the end of grade test in third grade.
I'm not even sure holding back's the answer.
Well, I'm not saying it is, but that was the only thing we could do.
But coming to summer school, they've got to get something if they come. Did we run buses? Did anyone ever discuss running buses for?
The year before.
You've been bringing this up for 2 years, running the buses for the summer school.
Well,
I challenge
because we ran buses.
I challenge Dr. Hamilton to give every ninth grader in our school system the eighth grade state exam, and I want to see the reading scores.
Let's see if Dr. Barnes has an answer.
You're bringing up a lot of stuff at 10 after 8 that I wasn't prepared to speak about.
Not on the agenda.
But I'll tell you that saying we're not trying to address the problem isn't correct. We cannot make our choices force our parents over the summer. I will tell you that I want to focus this district on growth, because that is where reading proficiency will happen. Is if we exceed growth year after year, our children will catch up. There are dangers to holding students back. There are dangers to a lot of what we're talking about tonight, but I will tell you that we have to think long ball. We're putting in the early literacy program. We're putting in the other reading program that Jen and her folks talked and Ms. Brewer talked about tonight. We have to make a long, comprehensive plan. I will tell you that our initial reading scores for the BOG, and I don't know if I'm supposed to say it or not, but we are making progress. So please don't say that we're not solving the problem, because this is not a problem that's going to solve itself with one summer.
Can I circle this back to what was on the agenda, which is the work of the task force, because they're all under here. Expanding freedom schools in the summer. We solved the universal preschool problem, then this is probably going to help a lot as well. But to Dr. Barnes's point, it's going to happen overnight. It's going to take work and work and work, and we're doing some of it, but there's more we can do. And I think that if we concentrate on, doing the work of the task force, solving some of these problems, we will get there. It's just, I'll just say it out loud. I mean, a root of a lot of this is poverty. And if you look at our underperforming schools, it is rooted in it. And that's just a fact. So we're not going to solve that as a school board here. All we can do is just do what we can do. And I think we're trying.
Right. Thank you very much for that update, Ms. Walker. Has anyone received any correspondence?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to, I've received a lot of feedback after the storm that was no named, that
we endured and we worked with our county partners, and I'm grateful for our emergency responders. So I just want to reiterate that again. Thank you to our emergency responders. Thank you to our county commissioners for having that collaboration. But I just want to tell people listening that it didn't go unnoticed. I've already given the feedback to Dr. Barnes, and he's discussed different things of safety protocols and things that he wants to look into. But I just didn't want to leave tonight going without saying that your voice has been heard. I've given all the suggestions that I have gathered from the public to him to have those discussions.
Anyone else? Nope. Okay. Going on to announcements, the Board of Education will hold a town hall meeting on Tuesday, October 15th at 5 p.m. at the Board of Education Center. Policy Committee will be meeting on Tuesday, October 22nd, 10 a.m. at the Board of Education Center. The general public will have an option to view remotely on the New Hanover County Schools TV YouTube. Board of Education will hold an agenda review meeting on Tuesday, October 29th, 2 p.m. Board of Education Center. The general public will have an option to view remotely New Hanover County Schools TV, YouTube TV. Ms. Walker.
So I just wanted to say November 5th is Election Day, and it's on a Tuesday on our board meeting day. So I don't know if y'all want to move that.
I thought we had.
Have we moved that already?
Months ago, you had brought that up.
Did we?
I think we did move, but I don't think it's been changed, so we need to change it.
That might have been for primary. I don't know.
Okay.
I thought you had made
Well, go ahead and make a motion. Yeah. Okay. Let's do it again,
Crystal,
Ms.
did
Walker.
we?
We haven't done it.
Have
We
we
have
moved
done
it,
it.
or
We
did
haven't
we
done
not?
We have done it. Okay, we have moved it,
So
yes.
just, okay, so announce that. It's not going to be on the 5th, it'll be on the 12th.
The November board meeting will be on the 12th of November
Thank you.
at 5 p.m.
Okay.
You
Miss-
left off the meeting in October for finance.
Oh, yeah, the joint meeting.
I'm just reading it.
What's on here?
What day is that? I don't have that on my calendar for me.
The 21st, October 21st.
October 21st, we will have a joint meeting of the Bond, Finance,
What time?
and Capital meeting at 12:30. Okay. At this point, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Okay.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. We are adjourned.